Yeah.
Hey, what's up? This is John McEntee here with the Rock Fantasy Files, Hostile Takeover. It's been quite a while since I've done this, and so I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. I think it's been at least 2, 3 years, something like that. I don't know, way too long. But I decided to do it right when I'm busy as fuck and everything. So why the hell not? Add a little extra work to everything. But no, this is going to be fun. First, let's introduce everybody. We have Ovi here, our European brother, and I have Count Ralphus, and we have Ed Farsty here. So great to be here with you guys. And I guess the topic for today is 1990, and some of our favorite releases from that time. And yeah, what are we doing? Then besides that, we're going to talk about some of the old demo days, some of the EP stuff, and just other assorted things. And we're doing just the Carnage Dark Reflections album, the Benediction, Subconscious Terror, Cancer to the Glory Ends, and Atrocity Hallucinations, all powerhouse releases from that time. We all have, I'm sure, something to say. I guess if we didn't, we wouldn't be here. So that's cool. um,
I believe you have that Atrocity CD on sale now on
uh,
eBay.
well, I think I already sold that one. So
All right, right, okay.
yeah, it's a good one. Now that I'll talk about how liking it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, and before we get into it, we're gonna do I guess a battle of these releases. And yeah, before we get into it, I just want to say that I'm gonna be doing 70,000 tons with Incantation. Was it the 30th to the 1st, and then we go on tour with Decapitated, Darkest Hour, and Ex Mortis after that. So I just want to make sure I say that because I know everybody will be pissed on my side if I forget to say it at the end. So to check us out on tour if you can, we really appreciate it. And yeah, so I guess let's get started with it. Let's see. I guess we'll start with Count Ralphus. We'll start with you. You seem ready with the
All
CD.
right, so I'm going to go through all four of them and like
Yeah, I guess,
rank them.
yeah, just we'll just all go through all four of them first. Is that cool, or you want to do just
Yeah.
one?
No,
How
go
are you
both.
Yep,
want to?
yep,
It's
that's cool.
basically up to the one that's doing the scorekeeping. That's if you want to do all four at once.
Oh well, yeah, we'll do one at a time. Then it's easier if I'm doing scorekeeping because I could barely do. I don't even remember how because usually it was what's his name
Dennis.
Yeah, yeah,
Dennis that does the
Denny's.
scoring. I don't know how to do that scoring.
I would just write all four bands down and then
Give
put
it a
like what number ranking they got or whatever,
yeah.
where they were. And the
Okay.
one with the least amount, I guess, would be the one
John, you want me to
because
do the scoring?
Yeah, you do the
I'll
scoring.
do the scoring,
Yeah,
John.
if you can, that's great.
No problem, no problem. I got it. I got it.
All right, so
Thank you.
my number four, I'm gonna. Oh, by the way, all 40s I think are just amazing classic albums. It's a great year for metal and death metal and extreme music. But yeah, it kind of sucks trying to put these in order because, like I said, they're all great. But you got to go with one of them. So my number four, I'm gonna have to go with Carnage, Dark Regulations. The title track is killer. Blasphemies of the Flesh, Malignant Epitaph, Death Evocation. Just a really great album. It's got that, you know, sound that a lot of other bands were having at that time, over there. And I got the version where it's got Cadaver. It was like a split with Cadaver. I don't know if these
Oh,
guys have
cool.
it this way,
Yeah. Forgot
but
about that.
yeah, the
That's
first
the old
Cadaver.
version of it.
Yeah, I think it's the very first
Yeah.
version that they came out. But yeah, just a really great release, like I said, and I love that album cover. That artwork is
Uh,
sick.
Yes.
A lot of good covers out of all of these ones. But yeah, that's my number four, Carnage.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go with Ofi then.
Well, I have Dennis's first, and Dennis has Carnage 2, number 4.
What was that?
Miles has
Oh, you there?
Dennis,
You there? I hear. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm giving Dennis's picks, and he has Carnage number 4. Miles has Atrocity number 4. And I also got Carnage number 4.
Cool. You got everyone.
Awesome.
Your turn, Ed.
All right. Let's see, number 4 is Atrocity, Hallucinations. Technical death metal from Germany. Kind of like Atheist, Cynic, Gore Guts later on. Definitely a good album. Not my favorite album. Yeah, life is long and life is a long and silent river is probably my favorite song for the album. But Atrocity is number 4 for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and for myself, I'd have to say the number 4th album for me is Cancer. I like the album a lot. I think it's good, but I think the only reason why I chose it as a number 4 was because actually when it came out, I didn't really know the album so well. I didn't get into that one until later. It just I don't know. It just passed me by. I mean, I knew it was out, but it just one of those albums I never picked up because there was so much stuff coming out then. It was years later when I heard it, and I still think it's a great album, but the other 3 just have more of a connection, like I don't know, almost an emotional connection from that time because the next 3 I played probably at home and in my car so many times that it just became like I don't know, part of my being. So I have to go
Also,
with
You think James Murphy is the reason for that with you?
that. I didn't check it out. I never.
No. I mean that
Oh,
you
that
like the other one so much more.
no, I don't think so. I mean, I I think James Murphy is a great guitar player and stuff, and he's a friend of mine. So I definitely would not like, be like, I'm not, he's put out an album where he's on an album. I'm not going to check it out or something. So, no, I don't think it's anything like that. It just totally just passed me by. There's just a couple of releases that were, um, for me, not quite as like I was really into more underground stuff, a lot of the Swedish stuff that was coming out, a little bit more on the rawer edge, and that's a little more, it's a little cleaner of an album, and a lot of the cleaner albums I just didn't really pick up right away. Because I was all in, writing Golgotha stuff mode. Last thing I wanted to hear was anything that sounded too clean besides maybe, obituaries, and complete or something like that, but for the most part, I really just wanted the more raw stuff. I like one of the things, some of my friends played it for me later on. I was like, oh, this is pretty damn cool,
Yeah, well, the band too, really, they did get known with the second album, Death Shall Be.
Yeah.
That's the really, that's like
Death shall rise.
Death
Yeah.
or right. Sorry. That's the first time I heard about them. I was like so cool that they had an album before that one. I was like, and also interesting with Carnage is like they turn into Dismember, they turn into Arch Enemy, or Michael Amott did go into Carcass and like Spiritual Beggars, and it's kind of he did go from Carnage to Spiritual Beggars in 1 year. It's kind of big turn for Michael
Yeah.
Amott.
Oh, and Ralph, I realized you were asking because James Murphy playing on the second album that they had, right? Because he was a guitar player on the second album, well, not the first one. Yeah.
I was just thinking, is that why you think that
Oh,
maybe
I
that
see.
album was
Yeah.
better?
Yes, I get it. Yeah, no, that really had no stake in the deal whatsoever. I did know that he played with them, but it's basically what I'm saying. I don't know, I don't have that emotional connection of young, being into it at the time, so I don't know that one, say like by the back of my hand, like I did. Even the second one, both of them, I just kind of passed up and heard later on by other friends that liked them because there was so much stuff coming out at that time. And
can't catch everything. You
yeah,
can't.
and
Yeah.
like every once in a
Yeah.
while, like something that I thought wasn't good, all of a sudden my friend will be playing, I'll be listening to it. This is pretty cool. What is this? And they'll say, oh, fuck, dude, I totally missed this one back then,
Yep.
and like I said, I was really into more underground stuff. Like actually, when these albums were coming out, I was buying stuff like I bought like Morbid Angel and a lot of stuff, but I was more into the demo trading app.
Oh, John?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, we lost John.
Oh, that's not good.
I wonder if it's still recording. It seems like it is. He might just
Yeah,
be
it's
frozen.
usually
They should be recording. We didn't get any notifications.
Yeah. So
But
I'll just go because I was
Yeah.
next in.
let's continue. Yep. We get back to
All
John.
right, so I'm gonna go with Cancer next.
All right.
I love this album cover. I caught this right away when it came out. I thought this was great, and I actually think they got a lot cleaner sounding as they went on, especially with James Murphy in there. So I actually thought that this was pretty raw and underground when it came out. Bloodbath, Cancer, fucking Cancer. That's a great song. When I had the Cancer Fest that I had for benefit for me that Keeler threw, I had put music to my post, and I used the song "Die Die" from this album. And John Tardy sings backing vocals on that song, which is really cool. And Into the Acid, another great song. And it's pretty cool. Like this got that classic image from Dawn of the Dead with the machete, and there's a machete in this album cover too. So it made me think
That's
of
why you picked them?
it made me think of I get this machete. It's like a Dawn of the Dead machete, and
Nice.
the guy who's got like that in his head, the real guy from the movie, he signed this, and then I got Ken Forey. Ken Forey signed the backside of it.
Nice.
But
How cool is
yeah,
that? That's cool. No wonder you got a great connection to that album.
yeah, the two machete albums. But yeah, so Carcass is my number 3. I mean, Cancer.
Yeah. Sorry about me cutting out for a second. My computer just went stupid.
It's all right. At least you're back.
Yeah, we figured we just keep going. We just figured we keep going if you
Yes,
freeze up.
hell yeah. Okay, so what was it next we were going with? Yeah, Ed.
That's okay. Number 3 for me is also Cancer. To the gory end. Brutal English death metal band. I definitely got into them with the first album, second album. James is also a good friend of mine, so I knew when he joined the band. I don't think he added that much more to the band because both albums are fucking great. But this is, let's see, a couple great songs. What is it? Witch Hunt, To the Gory End, and definitely Cancer, fucking Cancer, CFC. Great songs. All right, what do we got?
Awesome.
I mean, you got good.
So for Dennis Barth, he has Atrocity number 3.
Right.
Miles has Benediction number 3. I too have Cancer number 3.
Right.
Cool.
Now it's your turn, John.
Well, John.
I'm sorry, I missed some. See, that's why I'm spacing out. I'm sorry about that.
Number 2.
Cool. And for me, number 3 would be Atrocity's Hallucination. I love this album. To me, it's their best for sure, in my opinion. And I remember trading the Blue Blood 7-inch it was with one of the members in the band back then. I think I probably traded for Entrapment of Evil or something like that. And that was good, but the album so much better. I mean, to me, start to finish, it's a fantastic technical album. I mean, I think Ed was right. It has a little bit of Atrocity and some of the other technical bands at that time. Not Atrocity, what am I saying? Atheist and stuff like that, mixed a little bit of that vibe. But to me, it has its own original thing going on. It doesn't remind me too much of the technical stuff that was coming out at that time. It just had, I don't know, I just think it's a great album. I think the writing on it's great, the vocals are great, everything's great on the album. I don't even really have a favorite. I one of those albums I always listen beginning to end, and it just I think it's super creative. And I'm not like a huge tech death fan, but that might be my favorite tech death album, besides maybe Atheist's Piece of Time or something like that. That was a great one too. But yeah, that's my number three. The only reason why it's my number three is because I like the two other ones better.
Yep.
Also, a cool thing about Atrocity is that they are kind of alone in that pocket because there's no other tech death German band or in Europe really. So it sounds like they must have like they got the tapes from atheists or something, because I don't know where the inspiration is from, because it's certainly not from our side of the pond.
I mean, now there's a whole bunch of like tech bands out there now, but to me, none of them have the charisma of Atrocity. Atrocity, to me, they were technical, but they were catchy and had the riff structures on there for me were just really good. It was really interesting stuff, but not like I don't have to overthink about it. I can just enjoy the song. For me, I'm just not when bands are over technical, I just kind of start to get numb after a while. I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of you. You're a great player, but like you got to give me a little bit of meat on that riff, not just, not just dope quantity kind of thing.
I think my favorite tech death album really is Nocturnus, The Key.
That's a great
Yeah,
one.
that might be a the closest connection I could think to maybe what they were doing. They kind of pushed a little more, I think, than Nocturnus, but especially the Key. That's a great album, Nocturnus.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, I love that band.
I think when you think of 1990, there's really nothing like that album. Like Atheist was doing what they were doing, but they still had a little bit more of a thrash kind of feel,
Yeah.
where the Atrocity album was definitely pure death metal.
Yeah,
It had like all those chord changes and stuff. I feel like Chuck listened to that album and like kind of went in that direction after this album, because Spiritual Healing comes out that year, and they're not taking that full on tech road at the time. I think this is one of the leading albums of that whole like sound that comes out. And then they didn't even stick with it themselves. Like they abandoned it and went to shit, I thought. But if they would have stayed that way, they could have been the leaders of that sound.
Yep.
Well, I thought the second Atrocity, I can't think of what it's called now, was definitely did not have the same
Blood is Nord or something like that.
Yeah, it didn't hit me as good. I mean, it was still a death metal album, but it lost a lot of its personality, I thought, in the style. And that is interesting because what you said about death, because I would say that might be the closest thing to it is the way death went on like the more symbolic and stuff like that or whatever.
Yeah.
But adding that, but the thing I liked about Atrocity is that Death did it and but they changed their sound to make it more clear and a little nicer sounding, I would say. Well, Atrocity.
Yeah, I think it lost a lot of its aggression. It lost a lot of aggression, I thought. It got slicker sounding.
Yeah, it got slicker. Like the Atrocity album still has the essence of death metal. It still has the rough edge to it. It's not over slick, but it's still a great production. So yeah, that is interesting.
What are those interludes? Interludes, are those jazz or what? Because the interludes in between in the death metal is kind of like, I don't want to say Primus, but it has like that kind of, I don't know, mind blowing kind of like things going on in the middle.
Well, it was to me it was something really original. But that was what was great about that time in general, is that there was a huge amount of bands that had their own original flavor with death metal. It was still part of that scene where death metal didn't necessarily have the rules that it has at a certain point, where it's like, okay, these are the things you're supposed to do, and every band started doing it and it got kind of boring. Back then you still have bands that would have like way off or way different inspirations to their stuff and styles and stuff. So yeah, I think Atrocity is the Hallucinations is fucking awesome. Awesome as fuck, I'll say.
Yeah, it was a groundbreaking time. Like that first wave of death metal, like every singer sounded different. Like you could just hear it and know it was different bands. And then it's at one point all the bands try to do like the Cannibal Corpse voice or something like that. And it seems like that with thrash metal, that the early thrash metal bands, the first like 20 bands, not one of them sounds the same as far as the vocals go. They all had a unique way of they had their own signature sound.
Yeah.
But then at one point they all try to follow like the Metallica road or so. Whoever gets the popular band they all kind of jump on that bandwagon, and then it gets flooded, and then everything kind of sounds the same. It could still be sick and awesome, but it'll remind you of something else. The originality is what's lacking.
That was like
newer
if
music.
you think about it, you had bands like Entomb that had different kind of vocal style, and then more uh, I don't know.
Obituary, Deicide, every one of them. Everyone sounds
Yeah.
different. Yeah, every one of them had their unique sound.
It was nice that it was like that back then,
But I gotta say though, the Atrocity vocalist for 1990, I think he is probably one of the most brutal. He does have it's so deep voice. I mean, I'm like first time I heard this album, I was like, why didn't I hear this album in the 90s? So it's obviously gone under the radar and stay like a underground classic to this very day.
Well, my next pick is this Benediction, and the Barney's vocals on this ends up being one of the templates that gets copied the most because everybody just tries to go as guttural as they can. And this is definitely one of those albums where when you heard it, it was like, wow, what the fuck is that? And I could see why Napalm Death wanted to jump in there and grab him. And that album came out the same year too, right? Harmony Corruption came out the same year. It's pretty amazing.
Busy year for Barney.
Yeah.
Yeah, busy year. Artifacted Irreligion, Grizzled Finale, Experimental Stage. That's a great one. Divine Ultimatum. It's fucking awesome. And I wish I would have seen him at that point. I seen him a little later on, but that's my number 2. So 1 to go.
Cool.
My next. All right. Number 2 for me is Carnage. Great fucking Swedish death metal band. I mean, they went on to, all the bands basically. We mentioned them before. Fucking killer fucking Swedish. Unfortunately, the only album they did, but like Terrorizer, just a fucking absolute classic album that just spawned so much after that. They created a Swedish death metal scene pretty much just with the template. Great fucking. That's my number 2.
Awesome.
Okay, so then it's Barth. He has Benediction number 2. Miles has Carnage number 2. And myself, I have Atrocity number 2.
Right.
And for me, my number 2 is Benediction. I mean that's just an awesome album. One thing that Ralph didn't bring up was basically the vocals on that is kind of like a Cam Lee worship done in his own way. And he even it's so awesome because he even threw in like the extra comments in the songs, like the thrash and whatever kind of things. So they actually took some of the stuff that Cam Lee used to say live and put it in their song, just add those parts to it. It's really interesting because there was like such a huge Massacre fan base. It seemed like in the bands that were coming up and those earache bands in the UK and stuff. And Benediction kind of took that template, kind of roll with it. But the songs on that album were just for me, top notch. I mean, so catchy, such a cool vibe to it. And yes, when you hear Barney singing, it's just awesome. It's just strong. It's awesome. It's fun. It's fun, but brutal at the same time. And really Benediction is I just love Benediction because they're the kind of band that you always know what you're going to get. They're kind of like the Ramones or something of death metal. You're going to get some killer mid-tempo, just catchy, something that makes you want to either headbang or kind of slam to or something like that. And we actually played with them last summer a couple times, and it was just it's always a blast hanging. The guys are great. I mean, I'm sure Ed might know some of the guys. They're really cool in the band.
I met the guys in Benediction, unfortunately. I'd love to.
Oh no, they're really nice guys, and it's just always a fun thing. I mean, Dave Ingram, the current vocalist, he's awesome. awesome, dude. The whole band are just stand up guys. But Subconscious Terror is my favorite by Benediction.
Yeah.
And that actually reminds me of a small side bar story. Is that yeah, the first time I ended up seeing Barney play was with that Napalm Death show at CBGB's. I think, were you there at Varsity at that show?
Yep,
That
yep.
one. Yeah, I think we talked about that already.
Yes.
I remember I was super pumped to I'm super pumped to see Napalm Death, but they had the singer. I mean, I think Mentally Murder was out, so they didn't even have an album with Barney. So I was really curious on how that was going to be, but it was
Are
awesome.
you talking about the CBG
They might
show?
have had
The
Suffer
first they did,
Children.
that was 4 in the morning. It was like 4 in the morning.
Yeah, something like that. Yes. I don't remember if they had the Suffer the Children out by then. I kind of don't think so. I think it was just Mentally Murder was out.
Might have been, yeah, I don't remember.
I don't even think, I think it was just Jesse playing guitar. It wasn't even Mitch, I don't think. I can't
No,
remember.
it wasn't there.
Yeah, it was just like did as a 4-piece or something.
Yeah.
But yeah. So okay, I guess it's pretty obvious, but we'll go with number ones now.
Yep.
So Ralph.
Just really quick about Benediction.
Oh, yes.
Too is their last album
Oh,
from a couple of years ago. That was one of my favorite albums of the year.
yes.
And it might be my favorite album by them. I might even like it better than Subconscious
Really?
Terror. But and they got a brand new one coming out. But yeah, that last
That's
Benediction
true.
album, that really was one of the best albums of the year for me.
Yeah,
It
it's probably my
had that
number
same
two.
old school feel like they.
Well, that's what the
But
thing.
yeah, so my number one is Atrocity.
Yeah.
Nice.
You could say.
I was gonna say with
So
Benediction.
yeah,
Okay. I'll stop.
go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I get too
Go ahead. I'll
excited
stop.
talking about
There's a
metal.
tiny bit of a delay on mine.
Oh, I'm sorry. With Benediction, the thing I like about them too is they just don't give a fuck. They're when they play. I kind of brought it up before, but when they play, they just fucking do it. And the new album is probably my second favorite of theirs from their discography, and just a great band. I don't know. I just love them. They're great. They're great. They're really nice guys and just a great band. It's like one of those bands you're always happy to get to see and hang out with,
Also, a good reason why the last album kind of had a big upsurge is because Dave Ingram came back to the vocals.
Yes. Yeah. He's awesome. He's such a character, that guy.
But music video, when he sits in his chair and it's like everything is going to hell around him, he just sits there and
Yes, that's a funny video. Yeah, it's cool how he just sits in the chair like that. But okay, so next, I guess, Ed, your number one.
No, I can. It's I didn't finish this one. Is Atrocity, Hallucinations. I wish, like I said before, I wish they would have stayed with this style. Deep in Your Subconscious, the lead off track is incredible. Life is a Long Silent River. Love the chord changes and stuff. The title track is the best song out of all 4 albums to me. The Phoenix Intellect, Abyss of Addiction. Every song is intense. I think this is a masterpiece and it's ahead of its time. And like I was saying before, like I think bands like Death seemed like a new way of going when they heard this, and a lot of other bands too. And definitely with Atheists doing what they were doing, definitely people wanted to go down the more proggy kind of stuff. But really great album. That's definitely my number one underrated album.
Awesome.
All right. For me, number one is Benediction. We would keep going back to it. We keep talking about it. It's just so brutal. Fucking killer record. There's got to be something in the water over in England. Back in the 70s and the 80s, England just produces the best fucking bands.
it's called pollution.
Brutal death metal, like Napalm Death, Bolt Thrower, fucking and Benediction. Just you don't get better. And this album is definitely my favorite Benediction album too. Just a killer. My favorite of these 4 albums for sure.
Yeah, I think every song and it's awesome.
It is. I was gonna write down someone. I ended up writing down 5 songs that I love. I'm like, I love every fucking song in this album.
Yes. Cool. Opie?
Yes. So for Dennis Barth, he has Cancer number 1, and also Miles has Cancer number 1.
What?
Cool.
Those guys both got cancer?
Wow.
The band that can't sing.
And did you say yours?
What about you, Avi?
For myself, is Subconscious Terror. It's just when it chains and you hear that sound and it's like, and it just goes.
Yes. That's great. Yes.
It was that it sets the mood. I think intro of album has so much to say because an intro will set you in a mind space for where you're about to go. And with Benediction, you're not prepared for where you're going to go after that intro because it sounds like I don't know, like you're in a abandoned warehouse with chains and people with knives, and it's dark and you're about to get fucked.
Yes, that sounds awesome.
Nice visuals, Avi.
Yes, that's cool. That's cool.
But basically, the also with the album, I put it forward. I have it here too. I mean, the artwork is so cool, but I mean, the sound of the album. Maybe you, John, can talk a little about it because the sound of that Benediction album is like a sound I've never heard again. They never repeated it themselves again. I've never heard it in any other album because it's such a the song structure and kind of like it's I don't know, it's something about it. I can't explain it. Maybe you can, John.
I don't know how to explain it. It's a weird production because it's heavy as fuck, but it's also really a clean production. But it's like it still sounds underground sounding. It's like it's an interesting production, and the vocals like just sound powerful as fuck on that album too. So, but yeah, I don't really know how to explain it. I just know that none of their albums have sounded like that. Most of the guitars after that definitely had more of like almost like a crust sound to them or something like that, like a more open guitar sound. It was like almost like a little tighter guitar sound on the first one. I don't know why though. I think it's the same guys. It's just it's a weird thing about bands back then is like we didn't know what the hell we were doing in the studio. So it's like, you just kind of go in and you just bring your gear and you just play, and it's like the engineer just does stuff and you listen back and you hope it doesn't suck and you try to tell them like what you want, but they usually look at you like you're from Mars. So it's like we don't even know how it happened.
That crust sound you're talking about later may have to do with Frank Healy because he became a bass player on the second album and he played in the Realm of Chaos. What's the Beyond the Realm of Chaos. He played in that crust punk band in the 80s. What's the name of it? They come out that demo Beyond the Realm of Frank Healy played in that crust punk band with a female vocalist that came out in 85.
Is that I can't think of what I kind of think I know who you're
Black and white cover, kind of really cool. It is a 3-piece.
Maybe I don't. I'm not sure.
Not Nausea or Ambix or Sacrilege.
Yeah, Sacrilege. He played in Sacrilege. And he came into Benediction on the second album, and he comes from the crust scene, so he may have an effect on the sound of the band. I don't know. Frank Healy is pretty cool. He plays with the bass upside down. The thickest string is at the bottom, so he plays like
he plays it back upside down the bass. I don't remember.
Yeah, he still does it in Memoriam too to this very day.
He plays in Memoriam too. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. I guess I never knew that tidbit information. Shame on me.
I think the drums have a unique sound on that Benediction album. They got like a real deep sound, and they seem record it kind of weird in the mix, and maybe that has something to make it stand out.
I would say
you don't hear it so much in the next album.
Yeah, the mix is a little weird, but it's like in a good way for me that it's weird. Like, because I was listening to some demos today to think about the demo part of this, and it was reminding me like, everything I like almost sounds weird or sounds like crap or whatever, like for anybody that likes actual production. But for me, it's like I think all that stuff sounds super cool because it gives it like its own original vibe or something.
Kind of timestamps it too,
Yeah, for sure.
I gotta correct myself. Frank Healy didn't come in until the third album.
Okay. Yeah. But so yeah, my number one is Carnage. To to me, that album is, I mean, it's really one of my favorite. I mean, well, all these are one of my favorites of the era, but it's one of my like top two favorites of like if you threw everything from that year. That just the Dark Reflections album, it just had such a gross, heavy vibe to it. And I'm just a sucker for that Scandinavian guttural guitar saw sounding stuff, and it just has that. I was so bummed out when that band broke up. I mean, of course it was cool because, I mean, they went back to doing Dismember, some of the guys, or went to doing Dismember, some of the guys and stuff. And, they went on to do, Amat joined Carcass, which I thought was, yeah. I like them more in Carnage. But it was still, I mean, it's good. I mean, there was a lot of talent in that band, and they did all go to do, amazing stuff. I mean, really, Mike Amat, I mean, with Arch Enemies, just, I'm not a big Arch Enemy fan, but I definitely feel I respect what he's done with that. I guess I've always just had a little bit of a negative vibe about Mike Amat because when he was playing with Carcass, he was kind of a dick to me. So I kind of was like, I was like, fuck you, because we were hanging out. I think if I remember correctly, it was myself, Bob, and Ross from Relation, and maybe Tom from Relation was there. We were all standing outside of G. Willikers, and we all just happened to be wearing a Swedish shirt, like I can't remember, Nihilist, I probably Dismember, Entombed, I can't remember, Unleashed or something. And he comes up to all of us, like, he said something to the fact, like, you guys you like all that Swedish crap or whatever. It's like all that stuff sucks, but he wasn't saying like in a joking way. He was kind of like being a condescending prick about it, And I was like, we were all just like, fuck you, It's like, this stuff's fucking awesome, But it just it always bummed me out that he had that. He didn't respect the Carnage stuff that he did. Like had the attitude like, oh, that's just when I was a kid or whatever. I did that stuff, Now I'm like, doing the real thing or whatever, which just seems, I just don't like that kind of attitude with him. I mean, maybe he's a cool dude. I just got him on a wrong day, or he just was joking and he just was super dry joker. I'm not sure. But since then I've been kind of like, not really a big fan. And plus I just don't like, like my Carcass is Symphonies of Sickness and Recaputrefaction. So it's like, once he joined the band, it's like they got tighter and stuff and like more thrashier. And as a death metal fan at that time, the last thing I wanted to hear was Carcass be thrashier. But to be fair, I seen Carcass this year and they were fucking good. They're really good. But at the time, it just hit me in the wrong way where I was just like, what the fuck's going on here? But to be honest, all the other guys have always been super cool in the band. It's just like the new guy comes in and like acts like a dick,
The other thing with the Carnage album, it's the guitar solos, and it's like it's so fast that those guitar solos sound so good.
Yeah, and I just like the tone of the album. I love albums that have that oppressively heavy sound to it and stuff. And it just, yeah, it's great. I mean, I was a fan of their stuff beforehand because I know they had a couple demos out, but I think the album captured that time perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
I just wish they would have done another couple of albums in that style, but I mean, the band just wasn't destined. I mean, most of the guys in the band went to Dismember after that. I mean, they were still in Dismember, but they went to solely Dismember, and and I'm not bummed out about that because Dismember is one of my favorites. Of those old.
Also, for 1990, it's kind of interesting because Contrafus kind of spoke about the sound and stuff. And is it Tiamat? Is it
Yes.
that you call it Tiamat?
Yes.
Yeah, because they recorded in that studio that's famous for that sound first with the Sumerian cry, and then the month after, Entombed did record it.
Oh, you're
but
talking about
Entombed got released the week before the Tiamat album. So of course Entombed is known for the sound, but Tiamat recorded it first. They recorded that sound first.
Yeah.
but they have never got the glory for it because they didn't get released first. So it just shows how maybe Eric did pull a fast one, or I don't know, because it's like November, December, January, and February. It's like all that 4 months. You got Entombed, you got Tiamat, you have that one, and Dark Throne with Soulside Journey.
Yeah.
Those four was
They're all
like
done.
The Tiamat wasn't
yeah.
as dirty though. The Tiamat wasn't as dirty and brutal as like the Entombed stuff though.
But
Yeah.
they were the first, so of course they were the first, and then the second one they could adjust it. I'm sure.
But
Because that sound for Sunlight Studios or something.
Yeah, Sunlight Studios. Yeah. I think yeah, I mean the first Tiamat was pretty good album actually. I haven't listened to that one for quite some time. And I think wasn't there before that their 7-inch where they were under Treblinka, I think it was before that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But, and I like that a lot. That had almost like when they were Treblinka, almost a Celtic Frosty type vibe to some of their stuff. But yeah, I think though the Entombed Left Hand Path though, I mean that album has superior songs by far, I think, than Tiamat, and the sound is better. I mean, that's Left Hand Path when that came out, that was like holy fuck.
Yeah.
You know? I mean
that came out.
I don't think there was an album that sounded like that before it came out, you know, and it was a great day. When I seen that, I actually picked that up at Bleecker Bob's on my lunch break at work, and it was such an amazing moment. Even before hearing it, I'm just like, because they were like one of those bands, they were from my era of bands that we knew, we tape traded with, that, you know,
Nihilist.
put out this big release album, you know, even before hearing it, there was just a sense of like pride, like, you know, because back then not everyone got record deals. So when your friends get record deals, you're just like, and they put out a record, you see it and the cover's cool, you know, you already know the songs. I didn't hear it, but I knew most of them for the demos. So it was just like, I was super pumped about that. That brings back amazing memories. Left Hand Path, and what was it? Then the Carnage, I guess probably was that. I can't remember if that was done at Sunlight too. I think you're right though. It was.
Yeah, it's the month after.
Yeah, and then what was the other one you said?
That's Dark Throne with Soulside Journey.
Soulside Journey, yeah.
What do you think about that album? I'm just curious. I know it's from '91, but still.
I think it's a good album. I mean, it wasn't one of my favorites at the time, but I think it was a good album. But it was weird because once they did the Blaze of Northern Sky, at first I hated it because I was just like, that's lame as fuck that they decided to sound like Bathory, like a more epic, you know, an epic version Bathory. But then after listening to that one a few times, I was like, oh, I fucking like it. It's fucking good, you know. But I was stubborn as fuck when I first heard it because I was like, it doesn't sound like Soulside Journey at all. Like, why did they just change the name or something, you know? But it's good album.
Because Soulside Journey came out, and then they were recorded the album Goat Lord.
Yes.
It's also a death metal album that came out in '96 or something. And then they had a dispute inside in band, and they decided to throw away the death metal sound. And then they recorded the Blaze of Northern Sky. But this was all within a year. So I'm like, talk about creativity. You throw away a whole album and you make a new album that's Blaze in the Northern Sky. I'm like,
yeah,
but,
I mean, it's crazy, but at that age, somehow bands are able to pump stuff out a lot quicker. It's crazy. I know these days it's like, if I had to do an album a year, it'd be fucking impossible, you know? There's no way I could put out something that I wouldn't be able to write a whole album, scrap the whole album, write a whole new album, and have it be like epically awesome anymore, you know? It just couldn't happen. You know,
back in the '70s, they were doing 2 albums a year.
I know. I don't know. I mean,
imagine Rush doing 2 albums in '75. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, at least they were shorter albums. They were like, you know, 2-sided albums. Some bands later on, you know, have like a 70-minute CD or something, putting out one a year, which is almost like two 70s albums
Yeah.
back then, you know.
That's true.
But
But
have you heard Goat Lord in later time?
yeah, I heard that. I didn't hear it back then. Um, what was it? Dark Throne was not like, say, top of my list on my side. I like Soul Side Journey, but at the time I actually didn't really get into that one until I started jamming with Kyle on drums, because he was a big fan of that album, and then I started to dig it. But at the time, they might have had like the Goat Lord album through tape trading, but I didn't even look for it or nothing. So I didn't even know about it until it got released. He said somewhere in the late 90s or something like that. It
Yeah,
came out.
1996, 97 on Moonfog. It's Satire from Satiricon's label, but it doesn't have any vocals. It's just the album. I don't think they put vocals on it. It's just released, but it's like the next step in the death metal sound. So
Well, it had, if I remember correctly, it had kind of an autopsy-ish vibe to it or something like that. Unless I was wrong. I can't remember. I haven't listened to that album for a while.
it's different than Soulside for sure.
Yeah. Soulside was more technical album. The drum work was super technical on that album, from what I remember.
Yep, it is.
Cool. So
All right.
yeah. So let's see
So
who
there's our album battle.
Yeah,
All right,
see where we're at.
the rundown here.
Yeah.
We have a tie for third place with Atrocity and Carnage. And Cancer is in second place, and the best album, Benediction, which I fully agree with.
I can't argue with that, even though it's
They're
almost
all great
opposite of
albums.
my
All great
yes.
albums.
There's no losers there for sure.
It's funny. I listened to these albums a lot back in the day, as you did, John. But
Yeah.
I haven't really listened to any of these albums in years, so it was really fun revisiting them.
Same here.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing it's
Same
to me,
here.
it's really awesome about music is that it really brings back memories when you don't listen to something for a while and you pop it on. It almost like a flood of emotions come, because it was like, you know, back in the day you'd listen to it, you know, and just remind you of, I don't know, driving somewhere, driving to a show, or for me it's practice.
Yeah, but I
or
mean,
something.
when you scraped up enough money back in the day to get an album, you listened to that album all day long for months.
Yeah.
You knew
It
every
also
second
reminds
of that album.
it
You
reminds
knew
you
now.
how exciting it was at the time too.
Yeah.
It was a real exciting time. Everything was fresh and new, and it was something to look forward to. It's getting turned on to the next
We remember
great
doing
album.
chores, doing everything to get enough money to buy that album, and then it was like you would look at the artwork, you would look at like inside for details and for like juicy stuff that you didn't have internet, so it's like you wanted to say something cool to your buddies, you had to like study the albums.
Yeah. I mean, I know times change, but I think people are really missing out not having that experience, because there's no way it's the same listening to on the internet as going to the store, spending time in the record store deciding on which decision you're going to make.
Yep.
And then you finally make that album decision and you bring it home and you're like, fingers crossed, it's not going to suck, you know, spending money. And then when it comes on as a rager, it's just an awesome feeling, you know. It's
the best. Looking at the album, reading every word, every letter written on that album, going inside and out, just playing it over and over again. It's the best feeling. It really is.
That's the problem, is everything, they have access to everything now with the touch of a button, and it's so much easier, but there's too much. You don't get to absorb any of it.
Yeah.
You're just like, it could be the greatest thing ever you heard, and you're off to the next thing, and next thing, and next thing, and you could just, it's nothing's like sinking in, because you're not having it in your car for the next month, because that's the only album you have in there or whatever.
I love the record stores because it's that closed in air mixed with dust and kind of like new plastic.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's just just a great thing. It's something that it's like I said, it's very unfortunate that people can't ever feel now, because even now it's like I know what every album sounds like even before I buy it now, you know. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not the same. There's something about that anticipation of ordering the album, get psyched for the album, and you know, with having everything available to you for free, it really minimalizes things a lot. It
Yeah.
really, it's a, it really sucks actually, because I think you don't get to even let albums mature on you properly, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure
You
all
don't
of us
absorb
have
them.
bought records back then that the first time we heard it, we might not have gotten it 100%, but you want to, you spend your money on it, you know, so you want to listen to it. And then, you know, a couple months later, it's like one of your favorite bands, you know, but at first it
Yeah.
might have been a little bit tough to get into. Now, those bands all get discarded because if you just hear it right off the bat and it doesn't click with you, next, you know, but back
Yep,
then,
you just dismiss it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
dismiss it right away. If the first 30 seconds, as soon as you hear the vocals, go to the next thing. You know,
yeah,
it's
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
sad
if you
thing
bought it,
about
you're
it is,
gonna focus.
yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I do that too now. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's
Yeah.
not good. That shouldn't be like that, you know? But so if I'm doing it and I like the old school way, it's like the newer kids have to be doing it even more. But you know, I'm not giving things really a chance. But I guess it's just a old school person issue because, you know, that kind of stuff has been out of, you know, out of the way things work for years, you know? I mean, what, 20 years or whatever, people have been able to,
Since the internet,
yeah,
or
it screwed everything up with
since YouTube at least, and
yeah, I mean, even before that, with Napster and stuff too, it's like it was nice at first to use Napster and get all this stuff, but then you realize that, like, you know, it's you're actually killing everything in the scene for your own
yeah.
personal, you know, obsession of trying to get everything, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah, back in the day,
mean,
you would tape stuff from your friends because you couldn't afford to go out and buy
Yes,
it. So you buy a bunch of blank tapes. But
Right.
even there, the effort of doing that, going to someone's house with the tape and making them
You
record
appreciate
it
it.
for you and stuff. Yeah, it's with you guys with the tape trading and stuff. You know, you go into the mailbox and getting stamps and all that kind of shit. There was effort and there was
Oh,
anticipation of what you were getting back, and
those are the best
it's a whole
days.
different world now. It's all
yeah,
different button.
I mean, also like if I just say Divine Ultimatum, you guys know which song I'm talking about. You know how it goes. If I mention a song from now, you're probably like, oh,
What?
you don't have a clue really. You just
yeah,
remember the title. But if I say a song from that era, it's like, yeah,
No.
it's just going in your head because you have
yes,
it's in your subconscious.
Yeah, I have a hard time just remembering the names of albums now. So it's like forget
Yeah,
songs.
I was talking to a buddy of mine. I bought like 20 albums physically last year or 25 or whatnot. But when I think back to it last year, I really just listened to 3 or 4 of them like really good. Like Nile, of course, or Deicide and a couple others that I really did listen to. The 16 others I have, some is not even open. So
yeah,
it's like it shows that we still don't have the time. We don't have the time, and then the music scene now is not controlled by any labels of sorts. It lowers the whole general output of the quality of music. It's like we should go back to demos and just stay underground and reinvent
Back in
the
the day, there
field.
was only a couple of labels. You know, now there's a million labels. You could just put out
You
shit
just,
your own. You don't
yeah, you just stay
need
at
to
home
need a
and record it out,
label.
put it out.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another thing too. It's like it's just too flooded. There's so much and a lot of good stuff out there, but it's like we were saying, you don't absorb it. And I was buying all the new stuff the last few years, and then it's like he was saying, after a while you realize, oh, I've had this for 2 years now. I probably listened to it 5 times, you know, because you got a million other albums you're listening to, and it's too much going on, too flooded.
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's definitely a bummer the way music stuff kind of, you know, is. But maybe it's, you know, maybe there's something that we're missing because, you know, we're from the old school or whatever that makes it exciting for people now. But for me, it just, even when I like something, it still seems just different than it did um as a kid. It just seemed like, because I don't know. I just something about buying that record and holding it in your hands and like you own a piece of hit metal history or something. It just means so much more than listening to it on Spotify or
Yeah.
YouTube or whatever. I mean, it's convenient, and I do that stuff, but it's just not the same, you know. It just
No.
isn't.
It doesn't seem like you have as much time as you get older to listen to music too. So it's like,
That too.
Yeah.
and
Plus,
if you got 15 new
yeah,
albums, you're listening to each one once. It's not like you're listening to the one 10 times that week, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just that has a lot to do with it too. I mean, yeah. Now I notice myself with a lot of newer bands just kind of listening to it. Oh, okay, that's okay, or no, it's not my thing, and then moving on. And back in the day, it would have been like if you like something, you want to go out, you want to get it, and you want to, brag about it, talk about it. Now it's kind of like, oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. Their new song, yeah, it's a good band, yeah, it's cool. Just
And it's
different.
weird when it's something that's really incredible and you know you love it and you think it's amazing, but then you don't really go back to it. It's like you know it's great and everything, but it's just there's too much other stuff to listen
Yeah.
to. When you do go back to it, you'll love it. But so
Yes.
it's not a matter of it not being great. It's just a matter of are you giving it the listens that it deserves, you know?
And also, everybody has every album. I can't like go to Ed and say, "Listen to this Benediction album," and he comes to me with Atrocity, and like, "Whoa, cool! Maybe I can listen to your album for a while, and I'll listen to, and you listen to mine." And then it goes a couple of weeks, and then we refer like trade thoughts about each album and stuff. We do it over line now, and it just isn't the same. It's not
Nope.
the excitement. It's not like the impressions. It's like not if you have 5,000 CDs, it doesn't matter anymore because back in the day they would be like, how in the hell do you have so many albums? But nowadays, just it ain't shit.
Yeah.
No.
And
Yeah, if you got the internet, you got a million albums. You
Right.
know, you got the
yeah.
internet.
And then another thing too is that what happened after a while with the CD situation, it's so easy to press up CDs. It's like bands that would have been back in the day still doing demos, do albums now, do their CD or their album. And they're not like mature enough yet as a band where back in the day, it's like when we started off with Incan or with Revenant, there was no freaking way that we could even afford to record a full album first place. I mean, that's why we didn't even take one of the offers we got to Revenant back in the day with what was it? Whatever. New Renaissance, because they want us to pay for the recording. And it's like, how we're 17 years old. You can't pay for a recording. But now a 17-year-old kid could really do their album on their computer by just buying an interface and a few other little things. And you could afford to get it pressed now and put it online or whatever and get people to hear it, which is nice, but it's not good when them as a band didn't even get to the level where they should be recording an album. They're not matured enough as a band. Yeah, but of course they're excited to do it I would have probably did it too if I could put on an album early on. But in retrospect, it was a good thing because we had to work hard and make our band really good. And if we were lucky, we'd get a label that was interested. We were lucky that Relapse wanted to do it in can stuff, but I mean, especially for us, it wasn't even like a choice. It was like a Relapse did it, or we don't put out an album or something. But now it's like if Relapse doesn't do it, okay, we'll just do it ourselves or do it with the 40, 50 other labels in that same style, So
I imagine also like for demos now, like we are in the demos part of the program. It's like you have like a guitar that's almost falling apart, so you gotta tune it to every 5 minutes and stuff, and that creates a unique sound for that album because you use that guitar because you couldn't afford the best guitar, so it makes you put kind of like your signature on that sound.
yeah, it's true. I mean, we were lucky to have anything that we had to play on at that time, So you kind of just made it work, and you work with your own sound. I mean, as far as band wise stuff and recording demos, it was easier to be original back then because everybody wasn't listening to say everyone didn't have access to every album that existed. So everybody's influences started in a little bit different way or something like that. It wasn't like, okay, everyone knows, okay, these are the staple bands or whatever. Back then, it was whatever you bought, that was your world or whatever. Your world wasn't every single band in existence like it is now. And you get to almost cherry pick the parts from each band you like and do a riff in that style and make your band these days. It's a little less originality with it, which is kind of a bummer, but it's what it is.
So like for demos now, like talking about more demos, like back in the days, you had to write a letter, put the tape, mail it, and send it.
Yep.
So how did you guys like say Mitch Harris? He did trade the tapes and letters with Mick Harris in Napalm Death. That's how he ended up in Napalm Death. But how did those two connect? Was it like through a magazine or ads, or how did they come across the ocean?
What, tape trading?
Yeah, like how did you get the connections?
Initially,
across the thing?
initially through magazines like Metal Forces, they had the pen banger section, and there was always a page
Okay.
back that had tape traders. So you read through it and you'd be like, all right, this guy's in England, this guy's in Australia, this guy's in Cleveland, and list bands that you like. Everyone lists their favorite bands that they have tapes of. So you're like, oh, this guy sounds like me. So you write them a letter, you send them your list, you get back and forth. This shit goes on for like every couple of weeks, every couple of months, especially if it's overseas. You get a letter, you get tapes, and that's just how it builds up. And then you get, and whoever you're training with recommends, bands that they like and stuff, and it just grows. And started that back in 1984. I mean, that's how it all started, the underground, through tape trading.
It was almost like the fanzine and more underground magazines were the kind of the gateway, because they would have either little ads for other fanzines or bands or reviews of bands or whatever, and you just would just basically every band would have an address to write to, and if you couldn't find a record in the store half the time of most of the stuff, I would say, so you'd have to write to them and say like, I want some info on this or something. And every once in a while you just end up like meeting people that you get along with and are cool, and back then, like, we would write actual letters to each other, like a full page or a couple page letter to people. It wasn't just like, send me money, here's your demo, that's it. No, to be like, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that as a band, and hope everything's going good where you're at, and what are some cool bands. Like, we'd be talking to each other about like our individual scenes in our area, so we would know, they would know what's going on by us, and maybe we'd give them some contacts or some of the bands we were friends with or something, and they would give us a contact, saying, oh, my friend has a cool band, maybe check them out or something. It's a fun time. It's like, it's different than doing a social media thing, because it was more personable doing that kind of thing. It took time and effort. Now the contact is nice online, it's easier to do, but it's like most of the times you're just writing somebody like, yeah, yes, no, yeah, thumbs up or something, like no real conversation,
we write like 2-page letters and stuff, and all kinds of details. Like you said, John, talk about your local scene, your friends, bands you discovered, just all kinds of, just being friendly, just having correspondence with people. And you come home, check your mail, and you got letters from England and all over the world. You get excited.
Yes.
Like, you read the letters.
Open up that letter.
Great.
Did you ever
anybody
have
gets out of me is they get the horns emoji. That's all I do. That's like my answer. There you go.
Yes.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Ed, did you ever have contact with Metallion, the Slayer magazine, or Head Not Found?
Absolutely. I mean, Slayer Mag, that was one of my influences when I started my fanzine in 1984. Basically, that was one of the early fanzines. So absolutely, Battalion was, and I've got to know John. John's a great fucking guy.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I love that fanzine.
Yeah, it was a great one. I ordered a fanzine from him. I had a little contact with him. I wouldn't say we were like super close pen pals, but I mean, I sent, probably, I can't remember now, to probably send money for the fanzine to him or whatever. And he sent a little letter back, with the fanzine or whatever. It was nice though. It was a great vibe back then. Like a lot of the fanzines, they would send you a letter, ask about stuff. And because I played in the band, I was just like, I would probably just send the money and send them a demo or something like that, Yeah.
The interesting things about what we're talking about now, through the history of mankind, nobody will experience it again, and nobody will actually experience it. So this is a time that's going to be lost forever with us.
It's almost like 1980 to probably 94, 5 or somewhere around there is like this preserved time of, mail, tape trading, and just the scene existing through the mail service almost, you know.
That's what created it. That's how everyone knew everybody. That's how everyone got to know the band. And just
Oh, right.
that was
Look
created.
here. Look at that.
Oh, that's nice.
Anybody else get this book?
No, I
Which
didn't.
book is that?
It's the Battalion the Slayer
Oh yeah.
Mag Diaries.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like
Over there. Yep.
700 pages or something.
Yeah.
Thing's huge.
Yeah, I think that's all his issues, right?
It is. Yep.
Yeah, it's like every issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wish more of those
720
old
pages.
fanzines would do something like that now, because uh, I had some water issues and I lost a lot of my old fanzines and stuff back in the day. So I wish there was a way to reminisce on that stuff, because that stuff was really, really super important part of my life. I mean, once I realized especially the homemade printed fanzine, I lost my freaking mind, because I was just like, there's all this information out there about underground metal that I don't even know, and I have to know all of it, you know?
Yep. And we ate up those fanzines. I love them. I got so many fanzines. I got stacks and stacks of fanzines. I love them.
Yeah.
Still pull them out once in a while and read through them.
Yeah, they got to do more things like this where they put it all in one book. I got
Yes.
two other ones that are like this. I got a hardcore fanzine thing that was from Boston, but it was cool because it was in the early 80s and you could see the beginnings of thrash metal infiltrating the scene and stuff. And it was really cool pictures. And then I got the punk magazine where the term punk came from, was from a magazine in New York called Punk Magazine. And they did a book like that where it was like every issue in
Nice.
one book.
Yeah, when are you going to get your Book of Armageddon?
It wouldn't be that big. I only put out 4 issues.
Okay, well, it's still good enough though. Yeah, that's cool.
So did you guys say like did the demos peak like in 1990, or was it on the way down, or when was the peak of the demo days?
I think it was in the late 80s more than
Late
the
80s,
90s.
definitely late 80s.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I was
There was
still,
more bands in the early 90s.
yeah, I was getting a lot more. I mean, not a lot more, but I was getting a lot of demos in up until about 90, I don't know, 3-ish or something. It really sloped out after that, I think. But
They started changing to CDs and stuff. That was
yeah,
digital. Because I was doing Rage Records then. And
yes,
I'm getting a lot of demos, but then a lot of people pressing their own CDs, and a lot of other labels were popping up. So bands would start and they just put out a little mini CD or something on a friend's label. And it was just a lot of things just growing at that time. But I think the demo explosion was bigger in the late 80s, just
that's
strict
true.
demo.
Yes, 80s was the time. I mean, because I remember buying demos, but also just doing a lot of actual tape trading, like just getting lists from different people and having them fill up a tape full of different demos. And I would make a list of demos I have and make people tapes and do actual, dubbing trading or whatever and stuff like that for a little while. It was really fun. It was a good way to kind of get an idea of some bands that maybe you weren't 100% sure of, but you can get a copy of it from somebody. And even we used to was my friend Brian App and Jim Stanek. We used to have like demo parties because they had a lot of demos. I had a lot of demos. This was probably like 88 or 87 or something. And we just go over to one of our houses and just fucking, make tapes one after another for a while,
That's great.
Yes, it was awesome.
So let's get into that second part now. I guess of talking about some of our favorite demos. I was kind of hoping you, John, would kind of shed some light on Incantation Demo 1, just to start us off with demos of 1990.
I don't know what to say about it. I mean, it's always awkward for me to talk about our own demo, but I mean, I just know that we were blown away by the reaction from it. I mean, we released it in June 90, and actually one of the first feedbacks I got from it was from Steve O'Bannon from Seraphic Decay Records, because he gave me a deal to do a 7-inch on Seraphic Decay Records right when I left Revenant, and he had to wait like a year for me to get the demo out or whatever of my new band Incantation. But Incantation, he didn't even really know if he was going to like it or not, because all he ever heard was a rehearsal demo that Paul Ledney, Aragon Amori, and Brett Bukowski we did in like the very first lineup of Incantation. But then that fell apart and got a new lineup. So when I sent him the demo tape, it was just nice because he called me up and he was just like, dude, this is fucking sick. And I was just like, oh, yes, okay, because you don't know, like you do your own stuff. You're like, I'm not one to like listen to my own stuff and be like, man, I'm good, like, no, you do it and you're just like, fingers crossed, you just hope people like it. It means something to you, but you don't know if other people are going to like it. And he ended up liking it. And then it just got to be crazy. I mean, we started selling demos. They were selling like hotcakes for a while. And then, the reaction was really good. It was just a fun time. And it was great for me too, because I got to do a lot of demo trading with bands too that I was friends with and stuff, because I wanted their demo and they wanted mine. So I was like, cool. Like I got it's almost like a currency or something like that, like a metal currency, to have a good demo that people liked or whatnot. But yeah, it was a fun time. I mean, it was crazy because I went from like getting a couple letters each day, maybe anywhere from 1 to like 3, to like, getting closer to like, I don't know, 5 to 10 letters a day with orders and fanzines contacting us and other stuff. It was pretty intense. It actually got so crazy. I had to ask my friend Brian App, who I was just talking about, to help me with our mail, because if I did mail, I'd have no time to like write music or do anything with Incan, because it got so crazy for a little while. It was a fun time to be in the band, because it's just nice to have your stuff spread all over the world and to get positive feedback. Hopefully some of the positive feedback wasn't them just being nice to me or something.
Yeah, I mean, for a specialty about that, I was talking a little about sound and stuff, because that demo from 1990, it for me, it doesn't have any 80s sound in it. It's something completely new. It's like it's a whole new, I don't know, chapter.
Yeah.
Like it's closed in 80s and like 90s. Here we are.
Well, I mean, this kind of stuff I can't. It's different for different bands, but I mean, for us, we always wanted to sound like ourselves. That was kind of like the underlining reason why I left Revenant, is because I needed to do something that was, the style I wanted to do, but it wasn't like, it was influenced by a lot of stuff from the 80s, but it was important that I was able to have our own personality put into music. That was like back then, if you read some of the old interviews, I usually would say like I wasn't as concerned about the notes and the riff or anything. I was writing music as a listener. Like I wanted to listen to the riffs, and I wanted the riffs to be something when people hear them, it provokes them in some way or gives them a feeling. It's not just oh, he plays this part good and this part's tight and it's nice. No, I wanted people to hear it and feel how we felt. And we felt like everybody deserves to die. We want to kill posers like crazy. We wanted people to hear it and feel that hatred. We didn't want them to listen to it and just be another, okay, we're a band, we play good and whatever. It's like, no, ours was almost like a punk rock kind of vibe to it, where we just wanted to give, middle fingers out to everybody, and just, fuck off, we're here, and you like it or don't like it, we don't give a fuck. And that's pretty, I mean, we've always been that way, but definitely back then it was top priority. And I'm just happy that we were able to come across the proper way with that demo. People seem to really enjoy it and get that feeling of how pissed off we were and stuff. And I mean, it was great. I mean, I felt like I was on top of the world. I mean, Will Romer was on vocals and he was filling in for us. And at that time, it was a dream come true. I mean, yeah, I was friends with Will and it was cool, but to have him on our demo at that time, he was, in my opinion, the heaviest vocalist in death metal at that time. So I was like, wow, we get, like the heaviest death metal vocalist going to be singing on our demo, which we're already trying to make it to be like the heaviest thing we could possibly do. So I really felt grateful that he helped us out with that. I mean, that was definitely part of it. I mean, because without Will doing vocals on that, every other vocalist that came after it would have probably had a different template on where to go, because Will kind of set that standard of the low winds of death vocal kind of thing that he does. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I love
I pulled this one out, but I just realized that
Nice.
it says 1990, but then it also says 1991 Relapse Records.
That's
So I
the
thought this was
repressing.
1990.
Yeah, they did. The first one was on Seraphic Decay Records, and there. I mean, Ed Farsley probably remembers there was a big mess with Seraphic Decay Records back then, and it sucked because I a lot of those bands that got fucked over, I suggested to work with them, so I felt good about that. But
we all thought it was a good label.
What's that?
We all thought it was a good label, and
Yeah.
it got the 7 inches out. It got the music out.
Yeah,
We all got screwed.
Yes, but yeah. So we basically had to, if we wanted to continue releasing it, we basically decided to work with Relapse. Actually, I got the Relapse hookup from Matt Sitcher, who used to play drums for Mortician. We were in his room after Mortician practice. We just usually hang out in his room or whatever for a little bit. And I remember seeing a little ad on the his desk or something for Relapse Records. It might have been for like Suffocation or something like that. And I was like, oh, Relapse, you work with them. And from there, basically just from looking at that, he kind of introduced me to Matt Jacobson, and they decided to do like a re-release of the Entrapment of Evil 7-inch, and it's amazing how many copies of that damn 7-inch we sold. I mean, we don't have exact numbers from anybody really, but definitely not Seraphic Decay Records. But there was already probably minimum like 2,000 from them. But then Relapse released it. Another couple thousand, I think by like 91 or something, we were up to like 5,000 copies of the 7-inch. And then they even did more pressings after that, even while we were still doing Golgotha and stuff. So it was pretty impressive. I don't know how it even all happened, but it just, the thing just kept selling like hotcakes.
I believe that it's still being repressed to this day.
Well, there has been a few. I mean, there was like a couple labels that did like repress. Even the Hell's Headbangers did like a 12-inch version of it, and there was that guy that did the 7 inches of death, did a box set of it. It's pretty funny because it's just this demo that we just we just tried our best on. It's like it still holds up. Like people still really enjoy it. I don't know how, but I guess it's the same way for me. Like when I listen to, I don't know, the Crematory demo or something, it's such a classic. I just love listening to it. It's like, I guess, it's the same kind of thing. We're just lucky we came out at a good time for death metal. And there was a lot of great demos back then, and 7 inches and stuff. I'm surprised that ours even, got noticed with so much that was going on.
It says here exists 26 versions of it.
Oh shit!
Wow!
Wow! How many do you have, John?
Wow! Someone owes me some money. Holy
yeah!
Yeah.
I could use it. Fuck. Yes.
Last time it was released is Extreme Music in Spain, 2020.
Yes, that
and
was.
Then you have in Poland. In Poland, you have Black Moon Records.
Poland.
Oh, yeah, and 7 Metal Inches.
That's the guy that
Germany.
bootlegged it. Yes.
And then you have Valor Music in 2018. And you got Diabol Crust Productions from Malaysia, 2017.
Yeah, that's a bootleg too.
Yeah, and Hell's Headbangers, and that's official, I guess, from 2015.
Yes.
But it's just
probably platinum selling record.
Yeah.
It just lives on. It's just people bootlegging it to this very day.
Yeah, I mean, even if we didn't get paid for it, it'd be nice to know how many we sold, including all the bootlegs. Because It's,
Yeah, I guess it's quite a few.
I mean, just think of somebody, just think about, doing a demo when you're like, I don't know, 20 years old or 18 years old or something, whatever I was in the band. And like 35 years later, people are still pressing up this demo. Like if I would have known, I would have probably did a better job on it,
Oh, it sounds like you did a pretty good job, John.
We
So
tried. We tried. We just didn't know. We just didn't know what we were doing, but it worked out somehow.
I got
Yeah.
Craig Pillard to sign mine like 2 months ago, and John had already signed it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's killer. Yeah, though on that, even though Craig and that lineup's on there, that was actually it was the demo lineup that played on it. It was Will Romer on vocals and Sal Sajo on guitar, myself on guitar. Was Ronnie Dio was on bass, and Peter Barnovic was on drums. So, but when Relapse repressed it, we were already like that. The Golgotha lineup already was together, so Relapse wanted to establish that lineup, on the 7-inch, even though it was kind of fucked up to do. I mean, I know what Relapse wanted to do, but it was fucked up that the people that actually played on it should have been pictured on it, I thought. But back then, I was just happy that somebody wanted to release it. Yes, that's the Seraphic Decay version. Yeah.
That happens all the time. It sounds like
Look
I
at
know
this
a
boy.
lot of bands that said that where the picture is not the same.
Yeah, that's the lineup. It's only has 4 of us in the lineup because our drummer Peter Barnovic got basically, I don't know what the right word is, but almost like deported to Sweden because he was going to school at NYU and he wasn't paying attention to his studies because he's playing with us, and he got shipped back home because he failed.
So Ralph, maybe you could say a few demos that you enjoy and
Yeah, all right. Like I was saying before, it's kind of hard, like finding a good list of what was out. So I just grabbed a couple things, but the Dismember, Reborn in Blasphemy,
Yeah,
I think it was 1990, but it's kind of weird.
It is.
Yeah, okay. And this one I know was 1990. It's Monstrosity, Horror Infinity, Corpse Grinders,
Yes.
First Band. This is a great demo.
That's a great
Love this
demo.
And I got this one, Abominog demo number 1, just like John came up. Very
Yeah, it's the original name.
Very creative. They all thought they were number 1, but
Yes. Yeah.
Resting in Your Grave, Abominog. Great band. They just had a member passed away just recently.
Yeah.
That's a shame. And yeah, that's pretty much. I figured you guys would have a lot of them, but I didn't grab too many. That was it.
All right. Oh,
I got a whole list.
I believe Nick Anderson's play lead guitar on that demo of Dismember.
Yeah, I think he played lead guitar on the album too. I heard he played drums on. I forget.
Because the thing about Dismember, it's actually on the demo too. That special guitar lead, they have a certain lead that they never went from. You know what the lead I'm referring to, right? Dismember has if you hear Dismember's guitar lead, you know it's Dismember because it has a certain sound.
Oh yeah, definitely had their own.
Yeah, all solos by Nicky.
Yes, yeah. I think though I think he was on the album too, the first one. I just think that they didn't credit him on the album, but I can't remember. It was so long ago. I forget.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I guess I'll go. As far as demo, yeah, I didn't have time to really research all the demos that came out in 1990 because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of really great ones too.
Yes.
So I just went through my collection up there on the top shelf of just my prized demos. Came up with a bunch. Let's see, Abominog, Ralph just mentioned them. Fucking great. Rest in peace, Darren.
Yeah.
We got Ancient Rites.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Good band.
Yeah, definitely great band.
Yeah.
Broken Hope's first demo.
Oh yes, I have that one. That's awesome.
We got here to Broken Hope second demo. That was a promo that they were sending to the record labels.
The Broken Hope one, I think I got it when we went to Milwaukee Metal Fest and stayed at Jeremy's place, or we stopped by there or something. I think he gave me that demo. Oh no, that one was before. He was talking about it. I don't think he had it finished yet.
That's the one we went out together.
Yes, I think
Right.
so.
Yep. And we went to the horror convention out there and shit. Or
I
was that
think
Michigan?
no, that was we went to
Death Fest.
Metal Fest. It was, yeah,
Okay, cool.
Fest, yeah.
Man, there's a lot of fests back then. uh, Beyond Death from Buffalo.
Oh yeah, I never seen that one.
Uh,
I went in
Brutal
half.
Truth.
Yes.
Great band. Danny. Decatur, the 1990 demo. Unholy Ground. The Dismember. We mentioned that one already.
Mm-hmm.
Agoraphobia. Band you're very familiar with, John.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Great demo.
Malevolent Creation, the 1990 basically label demo. Mortician, the first demo.
Yes.
It's
Morticious
amazing.
from Virginia, another great demo.
Who was that one?
Morticious from
Oh,
Virginia.
Morticious. Yes, I remember them. Yes.
Numbskull, 1990 promo demo. Old Lady Drivers, 1990.
Wow.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
good demo. That's really
Well,
good.
wow.
That's
The
good.
Eric records.
Now, this one's not really death metal, but I had to pull it out. 1990.
Yeah.
Repulsion, but not the
Oh.
Repulsion we're thinking of. This is Typo Negative.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
When they
wow, that's
originally,
cool.
Yes,
when
I
they originally
used to have
formed, they
that
were called
one.
Repulsion. They had to change the name, but this is the demo.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Ripping Corpse, 1990 demo. Fucking
Nice.
great band. Atrovor, brutal fucking band.
Yes.
Ah,
Suffocation, the first demo. And to wrap it up, my collection here, Unleashed, the first demo. Fucking, but yeah, 1990 was so many fucking demos back then. I was tape trading. I had my fanzine. I was Roadrunner Records, so I had access to so many fucking demos. It was such an amazing time. So that's it for my demo collection right now. Like I said, I'm not even going to go. I didn't even research all the others like the Monstrosity and the Incantation. I don't actually have a copy of, and so many other demos. You can take it away, John. You continue.
You know, that Repulsion, I was just curious, did you see Repulsion play at L'Amour's you were at that show? I was at that show too.
You were at that, yeah. We were at a lot of shows together, John.
Yes, it's crazy. That was that I remember it was like so slow. It was this I was like the heaviest thing ever.
Yep.
They basically played the whole demo, which is basically the whole first
The whole album, yeah. Basically, yeah, it's all the same stuff.
It was great.
It was great. Yeah, it was definitely slow and heavy.
Yes, it was awesome. It was awesome. But
well, I mean, back in those days, you, John, wasn't too easy to spot because your hair was all over your whole face. You had
Yes.
such a big hair, dark hair.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I don't have the actual demos here with me. They're all in my storage unit. But some of we already mentioned. The Dismember demo was a great one. I don't know if you guys ever remember that Swedish band Toxemia.
Yes.
They had a really good demo too. And Abhorrence was another one I really liked a lot. The first Abhorrence demo, it was Boger, was it Necrolatry demo, and then I have Ripping Corpse, which is the Glorious Depravity demo. That was such a good demo, unbelievable. Unleashed, Utter Dark, that was a great demo too. And then the last one, no, I have two more. Old Funeral, the Abduction of Limbs demo. That was I was really digging that. That was what was it, the pre-Immortal band. I thought that demo was awesome. And then
yeah, it was certain guy on the bass too.
yes, and it was I can't remember who in the band, but I did a trade with them, and it was fucking a great demo. And then
you had Abbott on vocals, and you had Demonas on guitar, and you had a certain guy that's playing with matches later in the 90s and became kind of murderous on bass. And then you have had a drummer. I can't recall the drummer, but he is also a known guy. So Old Funeral it was basically our Carnage, that kind of into all kind of stuff.
Yeah, great band. And the last one I have here, I don't know actually if it's an official demo of that time, but I remember getting it. It was from 1990. It was that Massacre to Second Coming, the one where they had Joe from Whiplash playing drums.
I don't know
that? No?
I don't remember the demo, yeah.
Yeah. This was this Second Coming demo. This is the one that they did after it was when they had, it was the Camely, Rick Ross, and
Was Cam and Rick together? Yeah.
Joe. It was Joe. What's his last name from Whiplash? He used to playing for a little while. He played
Candelosi.
Candelosi, yeah, him, and I can't remember who was playing bass, but yeah, they did a demo that time. But then I guess that was the time when Death had their problem with Chuck not going to Europe for that tour.
Right.
And then basically Terry and Bill ended up getting an offer from, I think, Dig to do a Massacre album. So when they came back to the US, they basically kicked out the other guys and took the old lineup of Massacre, and then they rewrote and did the From Beyond album. But that demo I thought was really good. It was a really shame that it got kind of shelved or whatever. They did it, but I guess, you know, they didn't want it to interfere with the original guys getting back or whatever, you know.
That was
sorry, the certain Norwegian that was a little happy with Knives wasn't on Old Funeral. He probably played on rehearsals. He was not on the demo. I gotta just correct myself.
Yeah, I can't remember the lineup. I know it had one of the guys from Immortal was in the band. I guess it was
Abbott.
Was it Abbott? Yeah. So
because his real name is Ulve. It's basically the same as mine. It's just put L in it.
Yeah,
I think after L.
He might have been the one I was pen pals with. It just I never put his real name and his stage name, so I don't know. You know, once he changed the stage name, I didn't know who the fuck he was. You know.
Yeah. As for demos, I don't really have many, but I kind of listen to demos like this past week now, and a band that Ralph did put out from Norway, which I gotta put out here. Cadaver put out their second demo in 1990.
Cadaver was good, yeah.
And Gorguts put out To Then Comes Lividity or something.
Yeah.
And then you have Sinister with Perpetual Damnation. And from Sweden you have Necrophobic with Slow Asphyxiation. And Unleashed has already been said. Dismember Vital Remains with Excruciating Pain.
Oh shit! How about that?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I don't think of that as a demo. I don't think of that as a demo. That's why I didn't think of that one.
Yeah, it is. And I think it is a demo though. Actually, because I
have a CD of that when it came out, so I didn't look at it as a demo.
It was a demo.
It was like an EP or something.
Yeah.
Because I had the Vital Remains. I bought it. I remember I bought Let Us Pray on vinyl back in the 90s, and it was like, that's a monster for an album.
Yeah.
Yeah, Let Us Pray is great. My favorite by them, those I think Forever Underground. I like that one.
Oh yeah, the After. Yep.
It's a really catchy album.
As for EPs too, I guess Napalm Death's Suffer the Children EP came out, and I got the
7-inch of that.
Yeah,
I got the 7-inch of that. But I think of that as single. I think of that as a single, not an EP though.
Yeah, it's like it's 7-inch, so yeah.
Yeah, because you got a version that's 7-inch that got just Suffer the Children and Siege of Power live, and then you got the EP that has the Harmony Corruption song on it, which is basically just an industrial kind of like electronics song.
Yeah, I do. I haven't listened to it for a while. I remember there were a couple different versions of it when it came out or something.
Yeah, I gotta see her now because it has Siege of Power and Harmony Corruption on it on the EP, and on the 7-inch which he is talking about now, it's Suffer the Children, and you got the Kill Scum Extremely Retained and live on B side.
Yeah,
and those songs are like 10 seconds. So.
Yeah, I do remember it had a bunch of different versions of that when that came out. They really tried milking that one out.
Yeah. Eric started. I mean, Eric was so great back in 87 to like 90, 91. And after 91, I mean, Eric kind of, I guess they were like Roadrunner. They kind of started to not treat band as good, give them enough money in studios and kind of stuff. And then I remember I have Sepultura on Road Racer, not Road Runner, but Road Racer with the Jaguar on the
Yeah.
on the
Yeah, it's
logo.
the US.
European one, right?
No, Road
Huh?
Racer is US.
Oh, is Road Racer US?
Yeah,
I forget.
yeah.
Road
Yeah,
Runner.
'cause Road Runner started in Europe, and then they started Road Racer over here, and then when death metals, they started doing death metal bands. They started the RC label.
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
noticed they changed that. I figured you would know though, because you were working there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got the ESI with Legion on RC, and also all the Eric albums came out on what's it called?
Road Racer.
Relative,
Oh, Relativity.
Relativity
That's different.
distributor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna head into the open talk, kind of more like the phase 3 of the show. We will talk about the significant. I'll talk a little about it, about your demo, that 90s sound of death metal, that bridge between 89 to 90. You guys were in the scene at the time, so a little more about that. What did it came from? Who created it? Who evolved it in a way? And then also the sound of the albums, they changed from the 89 to 90. There was like a switch there that happened in the death metal scene. I guess I don't know. You could talk a little about that. Guitar sound was different. It's kind of like
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I know what you're saying. I think it was just the impact of a lot of the releases that were starting to come out around 90. There was just like you started having studios like Sunlight and what was this Mars Sound and stuff that were catering to death metal. So a lot of bands would, go there to those studio. I mean, yeah, those studios because they knew they can have someone there that understood the sound, because basically before that time nobody understood what the hell any of us were doing, so they would classify death metal in with thrash or something. So a lot of those albums would have kind of a weaker sound than they should, because it's not really the right production for that style of music. But it's difficult for me to say, because I was like anti going to any of the studios that were putting out death metal stuff, because I didn't want to. I didn't want our album to sound like Sunlight, or I didn't want it to sound like Mars Sound. I wanted it to sound like us. So even though we had to struggle and go to a studio and have people not 100% understand what we're doing, we felt better doing that than going the safe route of, like going to a Mars Sound, say, and have them trying to clean us up or something. I mean, it works great for some bands, obviously. It works amazing for some bands. For us, though, we wanted to keep all that ruggedness in there and stuff. So I don't think there were a lot of albums that sounded, say, the same way as Incan, but there was stuff, a lot of albums at that time. The production was starting, like people were starting to understand how to make it sound good. A lot of it happened to do, I think, with Death and Obituary and Morbid Angel, and then Indian Tombs and Dismembers. There started to be like something that people could say, okay, this is the death metal sound or whatever. Before that, it was just kind of like pissing in the wind, trying to make it sound as heavy as possible, and recording it or whatnot. But it doesn't, like, even if it's heavy as fuck, it's maybe production wise, it isn't quite as good. By the 90s, there started to become, it's almost, I called it like rules or something like that, of how to do it, which could be a good thing, but also could be a bad thing, because to me, it was almost the beginning of the end of death metal's popularity at that time, because even though it was doing well, there was getting to be too much of the same stuff coming out, too much of the same productions. And there's a lot of great bands, but bands were coming from everywhere, say, to go to Mars Sound or something, and they would ask, it's not even the guys at Mars Sound's fault, but they'd go there and be like, you want to sound like, I don't know, Death, or you want to sound like Obituary. So, bands started, too many bands started mimicking the sound. At least I noticed it a lot, because I was really in tune with that stuff. And I was like paranoid about going to a studio and having to make a sound just like whatever popular bands out there. Because a lot of times back then, you'd bring in a CD and they would like A/B your CD to the recording of what you're doing and try to batch it up and stuff. And I wanted to kind of stay away from that because I didn't, even though we might have had problems with making it sound good because we didn't know what we were doing, at least it was going to sound like us and not sound like, I don't know, Morbid Angel or something. I mean, all those bands are good, but there's no, to me, there was no use on redoing the same exact band that you just, you enjoy or something like that. But it's hard.
Yeah, but
It's hard to say.
I grew up kind of like in the 90s. So what you're saying now is kind of interesting because in Norway you had like Death Like Silence, you had that black metal scene, and it was like anti-Morrison sound, anti-mosh, anti-popular. So it makes sense what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we were just the pissed off Norwegians before there were pissed off Norwegians. We were just the American versions of it, I just didn't make flyers saying that we don't want to sound like Mars Sound or Sunlight or whatever.
So Ed, could you probably talk about from your perspective in 1990 what happened, from 89 to 90, what was the biggest thing you noticed in the scene from your angle?
Well, basically, I mean, 1990, the floodgates really opened for death metal. Before that, there were death metal bands, of course, and the sound was already created. The template was done. Bands were excelling. We have Morbid Angel, Death, Possessed, on and on. A lot of bands. But 1990, it really exploded. By that time, thrash metal had pretty much run its course as far as originality, brutality, and it was becoming kind of, rehashed. The heavy metal bands, the thrash metal bands were trying to get more successful. They were toning down their sound. They were becoming more commercial, this and that, adjusting, running out of steam, basically, as far as writing. So some of the older bands, was death metal was fresh. The death metal bands coming out, they had some of the thrash metal, riffing styles and musicianship, but death metal was a whole new monster. And by 1990, death metal was just everywhere in the world. Bands like Morbid Angel and Death and Possessed and all, like I said, had basically created a template, and all the other bands had run with it. And by 1990, the second wave of death metal bands, the Immolations, the Incantation, the Suffocation, the Deceased, those bands were strong now. They had their sound that they were working at. They had demos coming out. They started putting out albums by 90, and 91 was an even better year for these bands because they were all putting out albums by now. So by 1990, like I said, around the world, death metal was taking hold, and every corner of the world had their own sound: English sound, the Swedish sound, the Florida sound, the New York sound, and death metal was just everywhere, and it was fantastic. And most of these bands were all fucking great because they all had a slightly different sound. It'd be like, oh, this band sounds like that band, but they have a different twist. They have a different style. And it was just an amazing time. And that's why death metal just took off over the next 5 years. Death metal was fucking everywhere to the point that every band started sounding the same. And it got really, really oversaturated. And by 1995, there was just way too much, and I was done with it myself at that point. I was like, I'm looking for other types of metal and back to thrash, different things like that.
Two of the albums we talked about today, they were kind of in Europe. Nuclear Blast was kind of the Morrison sound label.
That's basically, by 1990, as far as record labels, you had the established labels. Roadrunner and Earache took the death metal flag and flew the flag and just put out the best bands, the biggest bands, the most successful bands. Like I said, the template creating death metal bands. But labels like Nuclear Blast, Peaceville, then the Seraphic Decay, Relapse, all these other labels really, really just excelled with the death metal bands, and they've latched onto it. And that was their thing, the death metal bands. And they put out the best of the second wave bands.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking what you said about the New York scene. I thought it was really cool because for me, like it was bands like Immolation, Suffocation, Mortician, us, we all sounded different, but we were all from the same era, but we weren't all trying to copy each other and stuff, which I thought made it really good. And we were all trying to push the limits of what we were doing, but not being just a copycat. But it's sad that after a while, it just, the scene got over flooded with too many bands. It got really bad. A lot of bands, they took the Cannibal Corpse and the Suffocation sound and just started running with it. Too many bands started doing that, and it really made it rough to listen to. It's like, yeah, I like Suffocation, but how many bands can I listen to that sound just like them? It's like, it's not interesting to me at all. Like bands were, say, less creative people were getting into starting bands and stuff, and they weren't throwing in their own personality. And that was the thing that killed it by, yeah, like 95, even 94, it started dying. And it was a bummer. I was bummed out that death metal was dying, but at the same time, I understood, because I'm like, it went from like 90, 91, 92, a lot of really good original sounding death metal albums were coming out. By 93, it was just kind of like, okay, it sucks, but it really was that way. I mean, not saying there weren't good albums coming out, but it was flooded. And every year after that got more, like almost like the amount doubled and it doubled and it doubled each year. But it doubled without like the double amount of interestingness. It was like
quality.
Yeah, like I mean, Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation they're great bands, but how many versions of it do you need to hear?
Yeah.
I only need them. I don't need all the other bands.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those bands they grew into something good, but
in New York pockets.
What's that?
Malevolent Creation were those in that New York pocket too?
Oh, in our area?
No,
they originally started went down to Florida.
Yeah.
They were originally Buffalo, right, or Rochester?
Yeah, they started in Buffalo. The first demo, actually, they recorded the first demo in Florida, but they started in Buffalo, moved to Florida, recorded the first demos, and it just stayed in Florida. But they're technically a Florida band.
Yeah, but yeah, they. I mean,
I think. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. It's okay.
I was just gonna say, 1990 was a real pivotal year for death metal, and it was like a lot what you guys are saying. You had every band sounded different, and it was real fresh, and nobody was really copying each other yet. Even though you had the bigger bands like Morbid Angel and Death, like the bands that were coming out, like Morgoth kind of sounded a bit like Death, but it wasn't like so obvious, like with all these bands trying to sound like one band. And another thing that I thought stood out is like how many bands were still on the fence, or like they're on that line. Are they thrash metal or death metal? Like Deceased and Primeval, Demolition Hammer, even bands like Exhorder and stuff like that. And even Cannibal Corpse. I mean, that first album, it's pretty much a heavy thrash album, except for the vocals kind of put it on the death metals, and more bands start to pull more away from thrash as it goes on, except for the bands that were trying to be thrash metal bands that wanted to be Metallica. Maybe they were getting weaker, but I think a lot of the bands death metal really starts getting its own like stance, and bands know the difference. Fans know the difference of the thrash and death metal. But it was just a great year. There's so many great bands that put out stuff that year, and a band like Winter putting out like a real slow death metal album, and you got bands like Pestilence, another band that's kind of like a thrash or death band, and then Empatego, Pungent Stench, Carcass, Roller, Vader, Master, Blasphemy, Massacre, Incubus is another one of those bands that's like riding the line there, thrash or death, So it's just an exciting time. I love looking back at these old, like from 88 to like these guys are saying to like 92 were like such a great years.
Fucking amazing. The best times.
Yeah. It was magical to be around at that time, it was just one of those things where albums would come out and they would just blow you away. It wasn't just like an album come, oh, this band's cool, or no, it'd be like you'd be like, oh fuck, so sick, it's so intense or something. Like I still think people were trying to push things forward, and at a certain point it's like when you get to that wall where you can't really push it more with aggression or brutality or whatever, or even the heavier doom stuff or something. At a certain point there's a wall, and it just doesn't matter if you go any further with any of that stuff, because it's like there's nothing nothing new as far as that aspect of it. It would have to be new with influences that you throw in or try and throw in your own personality. But to me, some of it, when the band started, say by mid 90s, when bands started throwing in different influences in death metal, I didn't like it because it seemed like they were trying too hard to do something different. It was like early on, bands could have different vibes. Like you have a band like Macabre or something, which is really awesome and brutal, but they're not the same as, what we were doing, or I don't know, Cannibal Corpse was doing, but it still was really intense. But later on, there became a lot of bands that were death metal, but they would just like try to throw in some sort of, I don't know, weird part in the song to try to make it different. And I never liked that stuff because it was just like, to me, that's not real. It's like, yeah, it's original, but it's almost like a false way of being original. Like, yeah, I could throw a polka part in the song and make my song original, but does it make the song
Yeah,
good? No. It doesn't.
Right.
yeah, there's the Fin Trolls doing like the folk music in there with it and stuff. I mean, they want to try something different, like you said, and sometimes it works. I mean, I guess you got to try it to know if it's going to work, but sometimes you can tell it's like you're
Yeah.
forcing two different
It's
genres together, and it's not going to work.
it just pushes. It's almost like they're doing it for the sake of trying to be original sometimes, instead of trying to really express yourself the right way or properly, or trying to write good music. Instead, it's like we want to try to be original, which is it's good to be original, but you can't force that, score a peg through the round hole. I mean, you could, but it's, to me, it's a messy situation. Because if I want to listen to other styles of music, I'll just listen to other styles of music. I don't need to listen to a death metal band if I want to hear, whatever, go polka. I'm going to listen to a polka band if I want to hear polka. I don't need to listen to a death metal band and do polka. It's not my thing. So
And something else I have on point here about it. It's like the artwork of the albums kind
mhm.
of exploded in 1990. I feel like there was so many cool, like the Carnage, like Left Hand Path, like all the bands like Nocturnus, or like they had such great artwork. I mean, it,
That
it
was
started.
also a thing that was a thing though, that a lot of bands were using the same artist,
Yes,
and
Dan
a lot of the
Seagrave.
stuff was coming out as the same kind of, yeah, another Seagrave artwork. And I think bands could have did that a little bit more original. But
Yeah.
I think that's mostly like record labels that were like, okay, we got this artist here and he's got these 15, pick one, and it's not really the band as much, but
I mean, Dan Seagrave's was good,
Label.
but it was too many.
yeah,
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Ed?
Oh no, as far as the artwork goes, when you're dealing with labels like Metal Blade, Earache, or Roadrunner, absolutely, it's the record label picking the artwork. Because they have the artists already commissioned, they have the artwork a lot of times commissioned, or they'll commission work to be done. But basically, they set that up.
Yes, some of
Sometimes the
the
band will come in with somebody, but usually it's the label.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Immolation was talking about record design stuff with Roadrunner, and it was they had terrible ideas.
Yeah, they do have a lot of bad ideas.
Terrible ideas. I mean, if they would have used their ideas, that the Dawn of Possession would have had a joke album cover, or whatever. So I'm happy that they didn't go with that.
Yes, yeah.
I know, like with us, it was we made a conscious effort that we wanted something different. We wanted to go with more abstract art, but something still dark but abstract, instead of, because of course, Relapse asking us who we want to use, and they brought up all the same people that did all the other album covers. I'm just like, nah, I want to do something different. So we actually put up, well, somebody, I don't know who did, somebody put up in an art school in New York a little flyer for saying like bands looking for artwork and stuff. And for luckily for us, Moran Kim just picked one of those numbers off there and called up Relapse and sent their portfolio in, and they sent us copies of some of the stuff that she did for other people. She was doing like X-Files and Hellraiser comic book stuff. And I remember looking at it and being like, oh, this is really cool because, I figured if we're gonna do an album, I don't want it to be someone to look at it and just see it just like every other album. I want them to look at it and see it's something different so it stands out. And also our vibe wasn't like that style of Dan Seagrave art. It's great, but it was, it was overdone, and it was just like we wanted something that kind of was a little more thought provoking. And so we went with Moran Kim, which I think was a good option. But a lot of bands kind of went with the generics or whatever, because the thing is a lot of those generic artists are really good at what they do, but it's just I mean, I remember with Roadrunner, like a lot of the thrash bands in the late 80s, they had the same fucking artwork, the same style, everything
It
was
was the
the
same thing
same.
with Ed Repka. Ed Repka did like 100 album covers, you know.
Yes. And it's cool, but you have to like do something, do something to make like the style look a little different, because why do you want your album to come out and just look like the same cover as somebody else? Because then it's like strips your identity to some extent. Because I mean, there are some great ones that Dan did with the Dan Seagrace on some of the stuff, like the Entombed, I thought was good. But and the Dismember is great too. But if you look at the Entombed to Dismember, it's like the biggest difference is the color scheme,
Yep.
They're both great covers, but it's just like it's really not that much different. Even
Yep.
Clandestine is a lot like Left Hand. Like they're different, but they're close enough where you notice. And
Same person. So they're going to be similar.
yes, So
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
but
the
I
bands
like
the
what you're
bands
saying.
didn't go looking out of their way for an artist the way Incantation did, and those albums definitely stand out as far as album covers. I just think with Incan maybe kind of using the same artist for so many of the albums, that gets a little bit just in your discography. I mean, they get a little mixed up
yeah,
because they're very similar. But
yeah,
as far as you with other bands, it looks totally different, and it's
Yeah.
very different, in that
it's
way.
true. I think it was just the way we are. We're just more. I'm just that kind of person. Like, well, if I like to see something that works, like to go with it or whatever, But and we liked working with Moran Kim for a while. But yeah, I think it's nice to have a different look for.
You got to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And you have though. You did with different albums there. You got different artwork in there, and that was good. Now you're kind of back, even though it's a different artist. It has
Eleanor
that same old
Cantor.
feeling.
But yeah, I mean, Eleanor Cantor is great, but he's been overexposed now too. I mean,
Everything.
we've been using him since 2014 or something, and he's done now Testament Creator. He started working with Immolation. He started working with just all like
Get around.
what was it? Hate Eternal. Like I forget, but everywhere I go, I see his fucking artwork now, and I'm happy for him. He's great, he's a nice guy and everything. But I'm just like, fuck, dude. Like everyone's using the guy that we started working with, and I knew he did other stuff. I don't expect him not to, but at the same time, you want to think that okay, maybe we found someone that we could just stick with, and it's going to be our art guy or our style or whatever. 'Cause I think he even did like Soulfly, and he did the Cavalier Conspiracy reissues now, and it's all great, but it's like it does get overkill. I mean, it's great for Eleron, but it's not so good for each individuality. Even though luckily Eleron has a little more of a mix in his style than Dan Seagrace used to have, but still, I noticed it right off the bat, and it's okay, but it's more of a personal thing, like. I want to have something that's a little different than what everyone else is doing.
Repka had a little bit of different style with some of his stuff too, because he's done so many. But then sometimes you look and then you go, "Oh shit, this was a Repka album!" You didn't even realize it. So it was kind of cool that he could try different things. But for the most part, you could tell, "Oh, that's a Repka album."
Well, to be fair, what happens a lot of times is people see an album cover they like and they say, we want to do something in the vein of this, the last one you did,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, because that's exactly what happened with the bands going to Sunlight Studio and Mars Sound back in the day. It's not those guys' fault in the studio because they're just getting paid to do whatever, you know, if you want your album to sound exactly like Morbid Angel's Altar of Madness, you're paying them. He's like, you don't play like it, but we'll give you the sound if that's what you want, you know.
Yeah.
But that's actually a lot of times the band themselves just making the bad decisions, you know, or unoriginal decisions.
Yeah, because I grew up with Eric Records, and like, of course, it was Morbid Angel. They had Dan Seagrave and stuff, but I grew up with Napalm Death, and Napalm Death had very special with Harmony Corruption. They have that type of layer kind of
Collage.
cut out thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
Carcass
thought
had the
cool.
collage too.
Carcass had a weird
Dead,
one too.
dead people.
Carcass was weird, and Bolt Thrower they went to like
great.
more. Yeah, they
Yeah,
did change very specific because Realm of Chaos to War Master, and then suddenly Ford Crusade looks like a old painting from the 1600, and then for Victory was just so they kind of evolved too. I like kind of bands evolve, but at the same time they can't really get too crazy because some bands did went a little far out with their artwork, and it's kind of like their album kind of I don't know, it's great album, but people don't pick it up because the artwork is like, I want to have something cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big thing, especially back before the internet. You found an album that had a gory, evil cover or something, and you said, "Oh, this is probably something good." But if you seen like that one Bolt Thrower album where it's just the soldiers walking on the beach or whatever, dark like
Yeah, for Victory,
silhouette
my
or whatever
favorite.
for
Yeah,
Victory. Yeah, it's like when you see that, I mean, it's cool because it stands out in their albums as something different. But if I was a kid in the store and I didn't know who they were, I just looked at that, I'd be like, I'm going for the monsters. There's devils on it or
This
something,
also is basically what John talks about because in 94, 95, which he's talking about when things were like everything sound the same, the artwork stooped too because say Obituary they had slowly rot cause of death, which is one of my favorites, and Complete was great, and then suddenly we all demise pollution. I'm like I mean
Well, there was a
nowadays
lot
the
of
album
controversy with that cause for alarm. Cause for death was that, that was supposed to be the Sepultura album cover,
Yes.
Yep.
and then
yeah
Obituary ended up taking it. And I guess Max was really mad because he was wearing a T-shirt already of just that artwork, and that artwork goes back to H.P. Lovecraft
Yeah.
books and stuff. But yeah, there was they ended up using the same artist for their Beneath the Remains, but it was a totally different piece.
Yeah.
that's also the same thing with Deicide and Carcass Heartwork because that kind of like peace sign upside down kind of thing. It was on a
Well,
on a on a bootleg I think of Deicide or something, and it's H.P. Lovecraft that did flesh out the one for Heartwork, but it was originally
H.R.
a Deicide thing.
Giger. H.R.
Yeah,
Giger did the
but the
sculpture for
idea of an
artwork.
inverted peace sign was really Deicide that wanted to have, but it was something that went on there. So after Heartwork, they didn't want to use it.
Well, what's the Deicide was going to do what inverted something?
Inverted peace sign. That's on Heartwork.
Yeah,
I
They
think
have a they had
I
a
think punk
bootleg
bands
CD or
punk bands
something.
were doing that. Punk bands were doing that inverted peace sign way
yeah.
Yeah,
further back in the 80s.
But
there was something with
Deicide wanted to do
Deicide.
the
There was a
inverted peace
friction.
sign. Deicide wanted to do the inverted peace sign.
They wanted to have it because there was something with Christ and something they were because they had like a I guess a bootleg or something a cool artwork they wanted to use, but then this it was the guy that runs Eric that told this story. It was there was like a friction between Carcass and Deicide about that artwork because the Carcass artwork is really cool, but it's nothing that Once Upon a Cross turned out to be in artwork.
Yeah. Yeah,
But there was some friction there, but it's like is that with rights or how is it that with like artwork say 1990 when it booms with the rights and who to use what and label and who runs this basically like monopoly for best artwork because artwork sells albums. That's why I'm kind of wondering.
And shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and shirts. So is it like say you have a label, Ed and I have a label, and like we have an artist, and we like basically bid on the best,
Yeah.
give the best money for best artwork, or is it some rules that you got to follow? And
That I don't know as far as rule. I mean, I know usually like Dan Seagrave, he's got art already made. It's like we're talking about the Sepultura thing with the cover and obituary. You choose the artwork. I mean, I know Roadrunner, they would send different pieces of art to the band that they wanted to use for the record labels, for the albums, and the band would choose out of the artwork they sent, or like with Immolation, they didn't want to use any of the artwork they would send. But as far as choosing, I don't know the details as far as how it comes up with the decisions or how many pieces of artwork to have.
Yeah. I mean, we just tried, like I said, find our own artists that we wanted to use, and we basically just paid them to do the artwork. I mean, well, Relapse paid them to do the artwork, but we gave them like the concept and everything of what we were trying to get across in the artwork, and she did the piece. It wasn't an already done piece and stuff, but it was really cool because we gave her some really interesting ideas, and when we got some of the sketches back, we were just like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So it was nice to be a part of that. See the idea from the beginning. I mean, it's weird because the idea from the beginning actually was a little more brutal than what the actual album cover was, but it still came out really good. Oh, that's the Deicide thing.
yeah, that's the same as artwork.
Oh yeah,
It's,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's,
that's like
it's
artwork.
for the
Yeah.
denied the cross.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So there was an issue there. That's what I was just getting at. But sorry.
but that's what
I think the
happens
band.
when there's um, you know, the record company, especially when they have like just a few artists they work with and they do most of their bands with it, things start to get all weird and stuff. Like we'll just say with our Praying Nuns artwork, that like what's behind Ralph there, that was done by Chris Moyen, but basically Chris Moyen sent like, I don't know, 6 pieces of artwork to Seraphic Decay, Steve O'Bannon, and basically Steve O'Bannon made photocopies of them, sent it to me and said, which one do you want to use? And I asked which ones, if there are any that were taken already or anything. He said, no, but the one that I guess the Praying Nuns was actually supposed to be the Dercada cover, but Dercada denied it, so they just offered it up to us. We see and we're like, oh yeah, that's cool, we'll use it. I didn't know it was Dercada's cover until afterwards, originally done for them, but it was just kind of like the way it went. It's like sometimes it would get passed around until the band just looked at it and said, this works. And we were young enough on that release that we weren't really super concerned about the concept of the album cover. We were just happy to have a cool album cover. I mean, it made sense, but it wasn't like later when we did the full album, we had the whole concept of the album. We're like, okay, it's important. This album cover is super important. We were still looking at it like it was okay. It's our first 7-inch. It's a cool looking cover. Let's go with it. And that's what I think a lot of bands do that say that we'll just use Roadrunner, for example, but I'm sure it's the same for like Metal Blade and Earache and stuff like that. Because you get a relationship, the guys get a relationship with the guy, and you probably get a good deal on it because he gets a lot of work and stuff like that. If you work with an individual that you never worked with before, they're going to charge you more for it. So they're going to go for that route last, because the record company at the end of the day wants to spend as little as possible for the best result.
Yep.
I know that Ralph is fond of that artwork behind him. He's fond of that type of artwork in general, and there's a few band that still uses that kind of artwork.
Yeah, I know Archgoat still does.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's cool. It's simpler, but it's like it stands out and it's powerful. I like the more.
Yeah.
It's like a very ground feel to it too when it's just like a drawing like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still friends with Chris Moyen, and every once in a while I hit him up for a piece of artwork. 'Cause I think it's cool to do like a new piece that has the old school vibe to it and stuff. So I still have him do stuff and whatever. But um, it's crazy, but the artwork actually did really well for us. It's like a band gets some good artwork and you get extra sales just on the artwork, especially back then because you can hear it on the internet. You're just like, well, this band has cool artwork, so I guess they're good. You know, I mean, I know I used to do that in the store. I'd look at the artwork, the song titles, and what shirts they were wearing or what bands they
Yeah,
put on their thanks list.
yeah,
That's how
what
you know to
shirts they were
buy.
wearing was really important. You know, that was so important. It's like,
It was crazy when we did our first photo shoot, like a professional one for Golgotha. I was like, I had to stress to the guys how important it was the shirts that we were wearing. You know, I wanted to wear something old, something new, something with our friends, and something that was like an influence, like an early influence. We had Possessed, Black Sabbath, Shub Niggurath, and what was Immolation. It was all picked. It was the guys in the band must have thought I was crazy because I'm like telling them like, no, you can't wear that shirt. It has to be this shirt. I mean, that's how Looney Tunes.
somebody should have said something to Frank on the back of Effigy the Forgotten.
Oh,
He was
yes.
wearing like a Trump Plaza shirt.
Yes.
No
yes.
one could have fucking said, "Hey, just throw this death metal shirt on."
Yeah, really.
I know. Well, I always thought it was lame. I'm just like, if you don't have enough time to like wear a cool shirt for your band photos, it's like that just
Yeah,
shows
there's like no thought behind
Yeah.
it. It was probably just a picture after a practice one day, and they didn't know they were doing band
Yes.
Yeah,
photo
but this
day or
is
whatever.
important. This is important because, like for me and Ralph, that's on the consumer side. The band, the guys we look up to in bands, the shirt they wear, we want to buy that band.
Yes. I know. I was the same way. Yes. Yeah. Well, with Frank wearing the Trump hotel shirt, I wonder now if he's like not a Trump fan or something, and he's like on the first album wearing a Trump shirt. So every time he has to sign it, he has to be like that fucking guy or something.
I think they kicked them out of the band years later. Like, yo, Frank, it's been a good run, but people are starting to boycott our shows because you're wearing that Trump shirt back 30 years ago. You wore that Trump shirt.
Let's make that well great again.
We got to go with someone new.
Yeah, yes, that's funny.
What about guitars? The guitars evolves always, and guitars are basically the death metal sound. So, which guitar brand, BC Rich, or which guitar brand would you say created the death metal sound, like in general? Like,
It's hard to say, really. I mean, most guitars you can get to sound pretty good, but I mean, for me, it was BC Rich, what I started with and stuff. But I mean, I was the metal dude, and they had cool metal guitars back then, and I was like, yeah, I'm all about it, you know. I mean, but I don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know I didn't know what I was doing, you know. I mean, I I knew kind of what I was getting sound wise, but there wasn't enough thought put into it as far as understanding. Like I just know I wanted heavy as fuck, and I just wish that my pedal board or something back then had a heavy as fuck sound, so I could just do that instead of struggle to try to do it. Because what you think sounds good sometimes sounds good by itself, but then when you throw it in with everything else, it sounds like crap or sounds too muddy or something like that. But it's hard to say. I mean, the bottom line is death metal, the style guitar playing came from a mixture of heavy metal, thrash, and punk, pretty much. So that's why there's so many like there's different styles. There's more like grungier style, like the Autopsy style, which is almost more of a punk sound to the fundamentals. Even though the music isn't punk, there's a fundamental there that you could tell that they have that looseness to it. But then you have, I don't know, a band like Malevolent Creation, which is like super tight, which is more of a thrash, or Suffocation, which is like they took the thrash template of playing and turned it into a heavier death metal type sound, and I just came from more of the more rugged punk vibe naturally. I didn't even really know it was a punk vibe. most of the bands I liked were just more the rugged sound. But then you had, I mean, a lot of bands, went with that template that, what the Metallica Testament kind of started with the super tight rhythms, and a Megadeth super tight rhythm sound, and they kind of converted that into death metal, which was good, but it was just different. It was, I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely
Yeah,
evolved
but
from like Sodom and Celtic Frost and stuff like that. You take bits from all those like early, really heavy thrash bands, and then you could put them together as like a death metal sound more. It's
Yeah.
definitely just an evolution of thrash.
Yeah, that's how it evolved.
yeah, because I think it's like David, Skolnick, he was a Ibanez guy because he is a guitar freak in a way, and like say James Hetfield, that's I guess okay guitar player. He is ESP, and it's like I mean, it's like, is it the same in the death metal scene too? Is it like the technical guys have a brand, and the more like bulldozer guys have like their brand, or is it the same, or does it?
I don't know. I think naturally guitar guitar geeks, or like, solo players, or whatever you want to call them, technical players, I think they usually end up going for a more I don't know, more, like an Ibanez, or maybe a Jackson style guitar or something like that, more, or a Les Paul kind of thing or something. And then, but it's not, it doesn't really matter that much. But it's just for actual guitar players that can play really well, like a technical, it's nicer to have not to have, say, a BC Rich Warlock or something like that, because it's not as comfortable to play all the crazy technical stuff on. You still could, but it's just not, most guitar guys like that are thinking in a different guitar way. I mean, you'd have a guitar player like Terrence Hobbs, which plays BC Rich, plays that fucker like, he's out of control. It's like super tight, super killer leads and stuff like that. And then you have guitar players like me with a BC Rich that's just kind of chugging along like, a caveman playing or something, So it's guitar playing in general is all like in the feeling and in the hands and stuff. I mean, the sound is the guitar, but the personality and the vibe is in the hands. So it's hard to really say.
Okay. Only question I'm asking now, because it all kind of floats into that sound of 1990, which is the topic of the episode. So that's why I'm asking kind of all different angles to kind of get a picture of 1990, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Ed, if you have anything like to talk about with 1990 and the death scene that hasn't really been talked about.
Not so much. I mean, we talked about the demos, the tape trading, the record labels. I mean, there's just.
I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're areas.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll add is that I think Ed and John are pretty much around the same age, and with thrash metal, we were just like a little young to be there for like the Metallica demos. I mean, some of these guys might add a bit, but like we were a little bit young to catch like that first wave of like Venom when they first came out and stuff like that. We caught on to it a little bit later, but with death metal, we were there for it and we were waiting for it, and we got the demos and we watched the evolution of it. So like that's the one genre where it's like, I think that's why it's so special to me, is that like I just never get sick of it. I'll always be a death metal fan, and it's because I was there from the beginning and I'm still there now.
That's a good point.
That's my final thing.
Yeah, it was our thing.
Yeah.
Like ironic too, like to talk, because 1990 to 94, 95, it was the same with the second wave of black metal in Norway too. It was very glorious but very short.
Yeah.
They all started copying. They had a template that they all copied.
Yeah.
They all tried to be Bathory over and over and over again. But then, as the years went on, some bands progressed and the evolution started. Now black metal doesn't have a specific sound no more. It could be symphonic black metal, this black metal, that. So it branches out and it evolves, and it's still going strong. Some good shit still coming out.
Yeah, something else too, like just to bring it to current time, there's there hasn't been any new instrument invented, or there's nothing new to build on. So it's like John talked about, when the room is out of air, it's out of air. So where do we go next? Like it's going to be interesting to see forward, because I think it will implode on itself with the because it's so much that basically you're a 5 second hit guy. You have like 5 seconds that you have a hit and then you're gone.
Yep.
I mean, it's got to implode sometime and kind of, I don't know, rebuild, start from scratch again. Because nowadays, I mean, there comes good stuff like Ralph says, but there's so much junk too. I mean, it's like, and
The
I
crazy
love,
thing is though is how many bands have how many styles have really died off though. Like you don't have, I mean, new wave of British heavy metal. Yeah, there's bands that have play that style, but like that whole like scene hasn't come back, and even like the thrash has never fully recovered. But death metal is still going strong. All these years, like that was the one genre of music that you didn't think was going to last as like a thing. And now here we are
Oh,
all these years later, and bands are still putting out albums from back then, like Incantation and so many, and it's going strong, and there's no end in the coming up for it. It's going to go on for the rest of our lives. Death metal
yeah, so
forever.
1990 really set the ground for everyone here. Like still today, it's like so. I mean, 1990 it's an interesting year to talk about.
Yep.
I guess we're going to revisit it on the main show, has been talked about. But
No, we talked about 1990 too much already. That's it.
yeah, yeah, heard it all.
cool.
Well, I guess we have.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't have anything more to really ask
Yeah.
Wrap it
about,
up.
or
Yes.
Yep. We've covered 1990.
So,
All right.
yeah, let's finish this off. I don't
yeah,
know.
John, you gotta go back to these recordings when you go write your book to kind of like refresh your memory. It's like because we have it on video now.
Yes, yes, yeah. Actually, I've been finally. We were doing the book like we started the book before the pandemic, and then I don't know what happened, but it just kind of like went off in obscurity somewhere, and out of nowhere, the writer friend got back to us. Finally decided he wanted to do it again, which is cool. I understand life gets in the way and stuff like that, but finally we've been back at doing it, and I've been doing ridiculous interviews talking about all the old times and stuff. So
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know anything about the book. I just ordered the immolation book like this week. Like I can't wait to get the immolation book, but that's great that there's going to be an incantation book.
yeah, I think we started it like at 18 or 17 or something, and then I think it's one of those things where you stop doing it for a little while, and I think the writer just lost steam and inspiration, and then over the last couple of months he started to get inspired again, because that's how you have to do these things. You can't, like, if you have to do a book and nobody, everyone's not on the right page to do it, it's a disaster of a thing to do. It's a lot of work for the writer to put all my stories together, or the rest of the guys' stories together and stuff like that. Make sense out of it. But it's cool. Hopefully it actually happens. I mean, we have 2 chapters so far, so that's the beginning.
It's like, what about pictures and stuff? Will be pictures in it?
Yeah, we're gonna have pictures in it for sure.
Okay.
Gonna be a lot of
I mean,
really
because it's
embarrassing
cool.
pictures of me. What's that?
Are you going to have a Rock Fantasy Files chapter?
I might have to. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing with the whole Rock Fantasy Files, it was crazy because I never would have thought I would have done any of that stuff, like the podcasting stuff, or whatever. But yeah, once I was asked to do it, I just kind of like ran with it. I guess I had so much free time. It's such a bummer now because I miss doing it, but I just can't get the time to do it these days. It's a bummer.
Yeah, you
Oh,
come back whenever you can. It's always great.
yeah, we'll just grab you when you're free and come up with some cool shit to talk about.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try to get back on track with it. It's kind of like the book thing. When you get off track doing it, you kind of like it's hard to get back on the wagon. But
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, let's finish this up. I don't even know how we finish these up anymore. You guys probably
Just
know.
say,
You guys
just
could
say
say
goodbye.
something.
Just hit
Wrap
stop
it
record.
up.
Just
Yep.
stop
Oh
record.
yeah, but I don't know if there's like an ending to say here, like.
Yeah, just say our names and then
Yes. Okay. Well, we got Ed Varsity. We got Ralph, and we have fucking Ophi and me. And thanks to everybody. Thanks to fucking did I fuck up or something? I don't even know.
It's not like you said, Opie.
Oh, sorry. Whatever.
You called him Opie earlier.
Opie.
And basically, people just write your ranking of the albums in the comment section. And,
yes, exactly.
And your thoughts on death metal, and ask questions. And yeah,
he has it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And see you guys next time. And rock on. And hell yeah. See ya.
All right. Cool.